Chapter 378. As soon as the divine spirit hand appeared, it blotted out the sky and covered the sun. Everyone was shocked. It was too powerful. Full text reading. Bayan wanted to see the book Forest Sky retreat, but he did not fight head-on. He stepped on the yin and yang to evade. The desolate demon physique stepped forward and pressed down with a huge handprint. Divine massacre handprint. Lin Tian's eyes shot out 2 rays of cold light as he retreated again. He waved his right hand and summoned more than 10 water seals. He threw them at the 2 of them. At the same time, he formed a seal with both hands and activated the divination divine technique. A huge blood-red crack appeared and attacked the 2 of them. Boom! The shockingly large collision caused the ground to split open. Lin Tian trembled violently, and the blood qi in his body surged. He turned around and rushed into the depths of the small world. He was not afraid of fighting the desolate demon physique alone, but Li Guhuang was indeed terrifying. He was stronger than Li Moyuan and the others. After him! Li Moyuan shouted. Luo Suying's eyes were cold, and Bai Qingying's killing intent was terrifying. They chased after him. Li Guhuang's expression was cold. He took a step forward and crossed 100 feet. Humph! The desolate demon physique sneered. He was wild and carried a demonic light that filled the sky. Instantly, the main figures rushed into the depths of the small world and chased after Lin Tian. Their eyes were sinister. Let's chase after them too. From the looks of it, the Master Apothecary's seclusion should be in the depths of this small world. Let's go! The group of cultivators also hurriedly rushed over. The desolate demon physique was reading. Boom! His vital essence was violent, causing the space to distort. Lin Tian stepped on the yin and yang hua and rushed into the depths of the small world. He occasionally looked back and saw the sun physique chasing closely behind him. Behind him was the desolate demon physique. Then, it was the Bai family's immortal ascension expert, Bai Qingying, and 2 elders from the Taishian sacred land and the Wantong sacred land. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he quickly thought about how to deal with them. He definitely did not have the combat strength to face so many people alone. Of course, if he could summon the divine sword in his sea of consciousness, it would be a different story. He could definitely kill everyone here. However, that was not very realistic. The divine sword was at the bottom of his sea of consciousness, and was not under his control at all. Clang! Clanging sounds of sword radiance rang out. A flame sword pressed down, severing space. Lin Tian did not respond. He stepped on the yin and yang liang to dodge. Buzz! The void trembled as the 10-finger lights pierced through the void, piercing through the void. Lin Tian recognized this finger light. It was the desolate demon physique's god-slaying finger. He coldly swept his eyes over Patsung. He didn't try to block. His feet flashed, and he dodged to the side. Whoo! He was fast enough, and the wind whistled in his ears. Bai Qingying rushed over, activating the supreme divine palm. Boundless divine might surged, shocking like raging waves beating against the shore. Do you want me to read a book? Old hag with a face full of wrinkles, you ugly freak, scram back to the Bai family's lair and don't come out to scare people. Lin Tian's words were vicious. The veins on Bai Qingying's forehead bulged, and her killing intent became even more violent. She was a dignified immortal reaching realm expert from an ancient family. Everyone respected her as a senior, but now she was called an old hag and ugly freak. Before I kill you, I'll tear your mouth! With a boom, divine power vibrated as if it was going to crush all space. Ugly freak, your combat strength is not bad, Lin Tian said. He smashed his iron fist behind him. His powerful physique trembled, and his blood qi surged as he flew backward. At this time, Li Moyuan and Luo Suying personally pressed over. They attacked Lin Tian with a single arm, showing no mercy. You 2 old things, when I get out of here, your Taishian sacred land and Wantong sacred land will never have peace again. Lin Tian now. After stabilizing his body in the air, Lin Tian did not hesitate and continued to flee into the distance. Now, he was facing 5 great experts alone. He was no match for them at all. "Today, you have nowhere to run," Bai Yingying said coldly. "Shut up, ugly freak," Lin Tian scolded. He moved while stepping on the yin and yang rock. His speed was extremely fast, but he still narrowly escaped death. He was almost suppressed a few times. Gradually, the space in front of them became empty, and another palace appeared. He wanted to read a book. The palace here was very small, as if there was only one room. Vaguely, one could smell the rich fragrance of pills floating in the air, making one's mind feel refreshed. In front of this small palace, there was a large 3-legged cauldron. The cauldron was black and had a vivid azure-white dragon engraved on it. Instantly, everyone stopped what they were doing. "The cultivation place of the master apothecary. It's here," Xing Yuqing said. Staring ahead, the 6th-grade alchemist was a little excited. After all, the owner of this place was the master apothecary. It could be said that he was the ancestor of the alchemists. The front of the palace was a little empty. There was nothing else except for the black cauldron in front of it. Lin Tian was the fastest. He rushed to the front and went straight for the black cauldron. "Stop him!" Xing Yuqing shouted. In fact, at this time, there was no need for Xing Yuqing to say anything. Everyone took action. The Sun Physique, Desolate Demon Physique, by Qingying, Li Moyuan, and Luo Suying suppressed Lin Tian at the same time. Lin Tianji felt a chill on his back. He quickly changed his direction in the air and moved more than 10 feet away. Even so, he was still brushed by the violent aura. The blood in his body surged, and he almost vomited blood. "The cauldron is a furnace, and it contains pill qi. There is a baoden inside," Xing Yuqing said. The Sun Physique, Li Guhuang, stepped forward and was the first to press forward. The Desolate Demon Physique snorted coldly. His eyes were full of wildness, and he also stepped forward. On the other side, Bai Qingying, Li Moyuan, and Luo Suying all rushed forward, temporarily abandoning Lin Tian. The main reason these people came here was to find the baoden that could extend one's lifespan refined by the master apothecary. How could they care about Lin Tian now? "I want to read the book." The 5 powerhouses attacked together, and directly tore the black cauldron apart. The black cauldron was torn apart, and a ball of treasure light gathered in midair. The pill qi surged, and it was shockingly hot. There were dozens of pills. "What a rich pill qi! Is this the kind of pill that can extend one's lifespan?" someone exclaimed. At this time, even many people who were not apothecaries could feel the pill qi. It was shockingly strong. Many cultivators approached and stared at the ball of treasure light in front of them. When they saw dozens of baoden inside, they all swallowed their saliva. With such a rich pill qi, even those who were not apothecaries could feel that it was very likely to be the life-prolonging pill. However, no one dared to move at this moment. After all, the 5 people standing in front of them were very terrifying. Li Moyuan said and looked at Bai Qingying and the others. "Everyone, there are about 99 baoden pills. We can all get some. Don't fight with each other to avoid hurting the harmony between the families." "That's what I mean," Luo Suying said. "That should be the case." Bai Qingying nodded. The lifespan of an immortal powerhouse was at most 1,000 years. These 3 people did not have much lifespan left. At most, they only had a few decades left. At this moment, seeing the baoden that was suspected to be able to extend one's lifespan, they did not want to cause any trouble because of a fight. The great young Physique's eyes were indifferent, and he did not say a word. The Desolate Demon Physique placed his hands behind his back and did not speak. Obviously, the 2 of them did not have any objections. "In that case, let's get the pills first," Li Moyuan said. The 5 of them stepped forward and tore open the golden light screen outside the baoden with divine light. Immediately, an even stronger pill fragrance surrounded them. Many people stared ahead and clenched their fists. Some even wanted to rush out and snatch the pills, but they endured it because rushing forward would mean death. At this moment, an unforeseen event happened. Hum! The dozens of Baoden emitted a strange light. Suddenly, a terrifying aura spread out, causing Li Moyuan and the others to change their expressions. The Baoden jumped, making crackling sounds. The next moment, the dozens of Baoden shattered at the same time, and hazy figures stepped out. Their faces could not be seen clearly, but they all emitted a terrifying aura. Bai Qingying was the unluckiest. The hazy figure closest to her threw a mechanical punch and landed directly on her chest. Poof! It was a simple punch, but its destructive power was shocking. It directly sent Bai Qingying flying, and dazzling blood splattered out. Li Moyuan and the others were shocked and stepped back. Crackle! 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 The sound like beans being fried echoed. Golden light flashed, and in the blink of an eye, the Baoden shattered, revealing 99 hazy figures. The 99 hazy figures had different auras, but they were all very strong and were not weaker than the immortal powerhouses. In the distance, Lin Tian's expression changed. This is? He thought of a Baoden recorded in the Pharmacopoeia, the 8th grade Baoden vast spirit pill. This kind of Baoden could condense supernatural powers and store them in the pill. After a period of time, once the Baoden was shattered, it could manifest the substantial shadow of such a supernatural power. Although it had only existed for a short time, it was very terrifying. Why is there such a Baoden here? What did the master apothecary mean back then? Lin Tian was even more puzzled. That kind of person deliberately left such a thing behind. Was it to stop and kill the intruders? That was impossible. This is not good. It's the legendary Baoden, the vast spirit pill, which can manifest supernatural powers. At this time, the alchemist of the Shen family remembered this kind of Baoden, and his expression immediately turned ugly. 99 kinds of supernatural powers, and these are elixir weapons. It seems that they can exist for about 2 hours. Oh no, this aura is not weaker than that of immortal powerhouses. Boom! A powerful aura surged. The 99 elixir weapons formed by the supernatural powers of the vast spirit pill moved at this moment. Without the slightest hesitation, these elixir weapons rushed out and killed everyone. Puff! 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 Elixir weapons comparable to immortal powerhouses were extremely terrifying. In the blink of an eye, cultivators were killed one by one. How can this be? Run! Some rogue cultivators were terrified. In the face of 99 terrifying elixir weapons, the place suddenly became chaotic. Not to mention the ordinary cultivators, even the sun-body Li Guhuang was moved. Several elixir weapons pressed toward him, and the violent aura was like an ocean pressing down on him. It was shocking. Get lost! The desolate demon body shouted coldly, and several elixir weapons also entangled him. As for Li Muyuan and Luo Suying, they were not in a good situation either. They protected Xin Yuqing while fighting against the elixir weapons. Because they had lost an arm, the two of them were in a good situation. Boom! The space trembled. In another direction, 5 elixir weapons stepped out. Their aura was vast, and they pressed toward Lin Tian. Lin Tian's heart froze, and he quickly retreated. This was equivalent to 5 immortal powerhouses. Chapter 379. Lin Tianji felt a chill down his spine and quickly retreated, not wanting to fight them head-on. Read web. Boom! One of the elixir soldiers attacked, and smashed the ground with its palm. Lin Tianji's eyes narrowed. Such destructive power was really terrifying. No, help, help! Run, run! Screams and sounds of horror echoed. In the blink of an eye, the empty ground in front of the small palace became chaotic. Dozens of elixir soldiers were killing in all directions. It was even more dangerous than the stone gate that sealed Ruoshui. Pft! 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 Streaks of bloody mist exploded and splashed into the air. Li Moyuan, Bai Qingying, and Luo Suying each encountered a few elixir soldiers and seemed to be in a sorry state. Bai Qingying's face turned pale. She had suffered a punch from an elixir soldier just now and was severely injured. Buzz! Buzz! On the other side, the Sun Physique and Desolate Demon Physique supported the king's territory and were in a much better condition than the other three. After all, they had king physiques. Everyone, hold on. I'll use my alchemy skills to interfere with them, Xing Yuqing said. As soon as he finished speaking, Xing Yuqing quickly formed a seal and a round of seals appeared. Although he was only at the Sea of Consciousness realm, he had gone very far in alchemy. He had cultivated many powerful alchemy skills that had great effects in many cases. The alchemy seals vibrated and rotated slowly, like immortal light intertwining in the air. Soon, the elixir soldiers that were charging towards Li Moyuan and the others all became stiff. As a result, the pressure on the few of them was greatly reduced. Thank you, Brother Shin, Li Moyuan said. Alchemists were indeed the most suitable to deal with alchemy skills. It was really a wise move to invite Xing Yuqing. It's okay. Xing Yuqing shook his head. Behind Xing Yuqing, Shin Qinyu clenched his fists. His eyes were full of brilliance as he said, Great-grandfather, you are really amazing. You can actually interfere with such a powerful and terrifying alchemy weapon and greatly reduce their mobility. Alchemy is very magical. If you master it, you'll be able to suppress the sky. Unfortunately, in this era, most of the secret skills in alchemy have been lost. Those that have been passed down are less than 10% of them. It's difficult to compete with the orthodox martial arts, Xing Yuqing said. As he spoke, Xing Yuqing looked in the direction of Lin Tian, a faint light flashing in his eyes. The art of alchemy had long been lost, especially the secret arts of attack. Too many of them had disappeared in the long river of time. Even a powerful alchemist clan like their own had only grasped less than 1% of the complete art of alchemy. But Lin Tian had grasped the lost art of alchemy from the legends. Xing Qinyu naturally saw Xing Yuqing's expression and asked, Great-grandfather, can you control the pill weapon to suppress him? Xing Yuqing shook her head. No, interfering with their movements is already the limit. Brother Shin, there's no need to rush. Just focus on disrupting the pill soldiers. I'll suppress this beast, Li Moyuan said. A glimmer of light flashed across Xing Yuqing's eyes as he nodded and said, All right, this old man will try his best. Finishing his words, Xing Yuqing formed seals and shot out even more pill seals. Lin Tian was really important to the Shin family. Once they could obtain Lin Tian's alchemy arts, the Shin family's strength would definitely increase by several times. Ha! Xing Yuqing shouted in a low voice. Instantly, the pill soldiers surrounding Li Moyuan and the others trembled and slowed down. Seeing this scene, many cultivators were shocked. The Shin family's alchemists can actually disrupt dozens of pill soldiers comparable to immortal ascension cultivators to such an extent. Some people were shocked. Dozens of pill soldiers were very powerful. In a head-on confrontation, even a few immortal ascension cultivators would not be enough to kill them. This could be seen from the sorry state Li Moyuan and the others were in just now. But now, Xing Yuqing's actions seemed to have caused these powerful pill soldiers to become sluggish. Their mobility was reduced by more than 10 times, which surprised the cultivators. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed. The Shin family's grade 6 alchemist was indeed powerful. He could even slightly suppress grade 8 pill soldiers. All right. In front of him, Li Moyuan nodded. At this time, the pill soldiers' mobility was extremely weak. After all, they were not controlled by their master. Li Moyuan tilted his head. His eyes flashed, and he directly pressed down on Lin Tian. Boom! Divine power vibrated and intertwined in all directions. Old man! Lin Tian stepped on the yin and yang hua and retreated, waving his right fist to meet the attack. With a boom, the two forces collided. Lin Tian retreated more than 10 steps, his fist slightly numb. After all, he was an immortal ascension cultivator. Although he had experienced the heavenly tribulation and had an unparalleled physical body, compared to an immortal ascension cultivator, there was still a huge gap. Li Moyuan's face was cold. He stepped forward again and pressed down on Lin Tian. A dignified immortal ascension cultivator had lost an arm to Lin Tian. This was too humiliating. Boom! A powerful palm pressed down, causing Lin Tian's expression to change. He was pushed dozens of feet away. ****. Bai Qingying's eyes were full of killing intent. Then, Luo Suying also rushed over and pressed down on Lin Tian with his theurgy. At this time, Xin Yuqing suppressed most of the pill soldiers, allowing the 3 immortal ascension cultivators to slow down. Li Guhuang glanced at Lin Tian but did not react. He had the sun physique and would not fight with others. Moreover, for him now, Lin Tian was too weak. He was not worth mentioning at all. The desolate demon physique's eyes were full of wildness. He stared coldly at Lin Tian, then looked at the small palace behind him. Boom! In the distance, divine light trembled. It was extremely terrifying. Lin Tian was facing 3 immortal ascension cultivators. In the blink of an eye, he was in a predicament. Although Li Moyuan and the other 2 were weakened, they were still immortal ascension cultivators. How could he stop the 3 of them? And Roashui had already been used up. The 3 immortal ascension cultivators attacked together, causing Lin Tian to retreat and dodge. For a moment, he was in a sorry state. "Today, you will die," Bai Qingying said coldly. The Bai family's supreme divine palm was activated. A vast palm print covered all directions. It was extremely shocking. This was the supreme divine palm of an immortal ascension cultivator. It was known as the power of destruction. "Ugly old witch, don't be in a hurry to say such harsh words. You might be killed instead, just like Bai Taining." Lin Tian retreated and faced the attack with the 4 symbols Dao diagram. Bai Qingying's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Her face was cruel. "There's no need to talk to this beast." Li Moyuan and Luo Suying suppressed Lin Tian and sent him flying with a bang. Blood gushed out of his mouth. Lin Tian looked into the distance. The pill seal around Xin Yuqing floated up and down, causing the group of pill soldiers to be stunned. They stopped moving. Seeing Lin Tian looking over, Xin Yuqing's face was indifferent. Behind Xin Yuqing, Xin Qingyu sneered and made a throat-slitting gesture at Lin Tian. His face was full of mockery. Lin Tian's eyes were cold as ice. He dodged again. "Suppress!" Luo Suying pressed in front of Lin Tian and slammed down with his palm. Lin Tian used the divinatory divine art. The divine cry palace, the barren heaven world, and the place where celestial Lord Daoran comprehended the Tao appeared one by one. There was blood at the corner of his mouth. He retreated pathetically and stared at Xin Yuqing. "If you can interfere, I'll try too," he said coldly. He stepped on the yin and yang puppet to avoid the 3 immortal ascension cultivators. Although he seemed to be in a sorry state, his eyes were very cold. "Pills are simple. One is simple. There is only Tao and no right. Hence they are called pills. The heavens are clear, the earth is peaceful, the valleys are full, and the people are immortal." His eyes were cold as he spat out the words one by one. "Alchemy is the Tao, and the Tao is the pill. Since time immemorial, with life as the origin, the mortal world is vast and boundless. The pill cocoon breaks to prove immortality." This was the general principle of the medicine codex. Lin Tian couldn't understand what it meant, but since it was branded as the general principle of the medicine codex, it must be extraordinary. Most importantly, it was left behind by the master apothecary. "What are you muttering? Are you reciting the rebirth mantra for yourself?" Bai Qingying said coldly. Lin Tian stepped on the yin and yang puppet as if he was stepping on Tao marks. His eyes were cold, and he didn't respond. Fighting against 3 immortal ascension cultivators at the same time, blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, but his expression didn't change at all. The divinatory divine art was activated. The divine bell, 9 springs sacred sword, 1,000 illusions divine hands, and the divine elephant of heaven appeared crazily. "Full is like abundance, abundance is like loss, loss is loss, loss is gain." He paused after every word, and his eyes were cold. In the distance, Xin Yuqing's expression changed drastically, and he suddenly trembled. The elixir weapons that he suppressed also trembled as if they were struggling. A powerful aura spread out, as if a ferocious beast was awakening. Finally, after 3 breaths, the elixir seal next to Xin Yuqing shattered. He coughed out a mouthful of blood and staggered back. Great-grandfather, what's wrong? Xin Qinyu's expression changed. Boom! 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 Terrifying waves of energy surged. The dozens of elixir weapons were all freed from the suppression, and they emitted an even more terrifying aura. Li Moyuan and the others' expressions changed. They were all shocked. Lin Tian retreated. There was a glaring trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, but the corners of his mouth curled up. Congratulations, you're in trouble. He stared at Li Moyuan and the other 2 with a cold and cruel gaze. Kill! He spat out a word coldly. In the small palace, dozens of elixir weapons trembled. They turned their heads and stared at Li Moyuan and the other 2. As if responding to Lin Tian's words, the elixir weapons immediately rushed over and slapped at the 3 of them. This is... Brother Shen, what are you doing? Suppress them! The 3 of them changed their expressions. Xin Yuqing struggled to get up and formed another seal. Elixir seals floated out. Lin Tian tilted his head and smiled coldly. He pointed at Xin Yuqing. Boom! Behind him, an alchemy weapon stepped forward and pressed down on him. This is... That elixir weapon is following his orders? How is that possible? The group of cultivators' expressions changed. At the same time, the sun physique and the desolate demon physique were also shocked. 2 rays of light shot out from their eyes. The elixir weapon stepped in front of Xin Yuqing and pressed down with its palm. Xin Yuqing's expression changed. He activated the 5th-level blue elixir fire, which burned the space and distorted it. Xin Yuqing was a 6th-level alchemist. Although his cultivation was only at the Sea of Consciousness realm, his combat strength was not to be underestimated. It would not take much effort to kill an ordinary airborne realm cultivator. It was just an elixir weapon. He could deal with it with his alchemy skills. Lin Tianling smiled and pointed again. In the blink of an eye, another 5 elixir weapons pressed forward and came in front of Xin Yuqing. The elixir weapons were blurry. They attacked together and attacked Xin Yuqing. No! Xin Yuqing screamed in horror and was directly smashed into meat paste. Chapter 380. As a 6th-grade alchemist, Xin Yuqing's strength was not weak at all. It was enough to suppress ordinary elites of the Zephyr Plane. However, facing 6 alchemy weapons that were comparable to elites of the immortal connecting realm at the same time, how could he resist? He was crushed into a bloody mist on the spot. Reading, I want to read, great-grandfather. Xin Qinyu's expression changed drastically. At the same time, Li Moyuan and Luo Suiying's expressions changed. Xin Yuqing was one of the pillars of the Xin family, but now he was dead. Lin Tian glanced at Xin Qinyu coldly. With a flicker of his feet, he walked among the dozens of alchemy soldiers. Not a single one of them blocked his path, and they even made way for him. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Xin Qinyu. It's a small world, right, genius? He sneered. Xin Qinyu's expression changed. His face was pale as he looked at Li Moyuan and the others. Seniors, save me! Xin Qinyu was proud by nature, but he also knew that he was far from being a match for Lin Tian. Save you? They will also die today, Lin Tianling said. That day, Xin Qinyu led a group of people to hunt him down when he was seriously injured and forced him into a dead end. He would never forget that. Without showing any mercy, he raised his hand and slapped down. Pooh! Blood and brain matter splattered everywhere. Xin Qinyu's head was smashed into pieces. All around, the cultivators were horrified, and they all gasped. Before this, Xin Yuqing had suppressed dozens of alchemy soldiers, which had shocked everyone. However, at this moment, in the blink of an eye, Xin Yuqing had been killed. Even his descendant, Xin Qinyu, had been slapped to death. This caused many people's hearts to tremble and chills to run down their spines. Lin Tian tilted his head. With a thought, he looked at Li Moyuan and the other 2 and said, Kill! Boom! 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 Powerful and vast waves of energy intertwined as more than 30 pill soldiers pressed forward. Bayan wanted to see such a battle array, causing the three people's expressions to immediately change. These elixir soldiers were all comparable to those in the celestial path realm. Damn it! What did you do? Li Moyuan's face was ashen. Lin Tian didn't respond. He tilted his head and stared at the other two. Sun body, desolate demon body. Kill! He still only had this one word as he stared at the two of them. As he raised his finger, more than 50 alchemy soldiers moved in unison. Half of them pressed towards the sun physique, while the other half pressed towards the desolate demon physique. This scene caused everyone's expression to change. Can he really control these elixir soldiers? Even the Tier 6 alchemist Xin Yuqing could only suppress it, but he could actually control it? How is this possible? He's also an alchemist? Are you overstepping Xin Yuqing? 99 elixir soldiers, comparable to 99 immortal connecting experts. Many people were terrified. Lin Tian's were moved, and dozens of pill soldiers charged forward. Li Guhuang and Pitsang were startled. They propped up the solar ocean and the barren heaven world to protect themselves, preventing the elixir soldiers from approaching. The king's territory is indeed impressive, but can you hold up the king's territory and block dozens of immortal ascension powerhouses? Lin Tianling smiled. Do you want to read a book? Equals 1K*A/N Shu. He was right. Li Guhuang and Pitsung could stop one or two immortal reaching realm cultivators, and could even kill them. However, if dozens of them came together, it would be dangerous. Even someone as strong as Li Guhuang could only be suppressed. Crack! Crack! A crisp sound was heard, and cracks appeared on the solar ocean and the barren heaven world. The dozens of elixir soldiers pressed against each other, each brandishing divine light. This was a vast and terrifying wave. Dozens of elixir soldiers comparable to immortal connecting experts attacked together. The power was terrifying just thinking about it. Pft! Pft! Without any suspense, Li Guhuang and Pitsang were both sent flying. The king's territory was shattered, and they both coughed up blood. Lin Tian's eyes were emotionless. With a thought, dozens of elixir soldiers pressed forward again. These Tier 8 elixir soldiers were undoubtedly left behind by the master apothecary. The general principles of the medicine encyclopedia that he recited just now were also left behind by the master apothecary. He immediately communicated with the dozens of elixir soldiers. Now, the dozens of elixir soldiers moved according to his thought. At this moment, he stood there facing these elixir soldiers. It was equivalent to the master apothecary himself. Boom! 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 Terrifying aura, vast waves, and divine might rushed into the sky. It was extremely shocking. Li Guhuang and Pitsang faced dozens of elixir soldiers at the same time. It was naturally difficult for them to resist. In the blink of an eye, they were sent flying several times. Li Guhuang's eyes flashed coldly. Even though blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth, he stared coldly at Lin Tian. Pitsang's eyes were even crazier, filled with wild light. The demonic light in his body erupted like a volcano. Your eyes are not bad, Lin Tianling said. Do you want to read? 1/K following his thought, dozens of elixir soldiers rushed forward, each using their own unique techniques. For a moment, the light suppressed all directions. Li Guhuang held up the solar ocean and used the hand of gods. Unfortunately, facing dozens of immortal connecting experts, he couldn't resist at all. He was sent flying on the spot, and half of his body was almost smashed. Cough. On the other side, Pitsang coughed up blood and staggered back. The barren heaven realm was shattered. Pitsang was hit by a few elixir soldiers and was severely injured on the spot. It'll be interesting to kill 2 king physiques in one day, he sneered. At this place, the group of cultivators collectively sucked in a breath of cold air, only to feel some pain in their internal organs. Was he going to kill the solar physique and the desolate demon physique? Isn't that a bit too arrogant? Arrogant? He can control those elixir soldiers now. He can do it. Is he really going to kill them? The Li family in Mount Tianyao will go crazy. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. Violent divine powers trembled. Dozens of elixir soldiers pressed toward Li Guhuang and put Tsang together. This was no longer a battle. It was a complete suppression. Bang! Once again, Li Guhuang was sent flying, blood gushing out of his mouth. But Tsang, the desolate demon physique, wasn't any better. He staggered back, a bloody hole in his shoulder. Lin Tian! Do you dare to fight me head-on? But Tsang stared coldly at Lin Tian. All right, Lin Tian now said. If you want me to read a book, you can do that. 1 = K/AN/SHUN. As soon as he finished speaking, dozens of elixir soldiers moved according to his will and pressed forward even more cruelly. But Tsang's eyes were ferocious. Dozens of elixir soldiers pressed forward and sent him flying. Lin Tianling snorted and looked to the other side. Solar physique. He stared at Li Guhuang and sneered. Li Guhuang was in a sorry state. Dozens of elixir soldiers surrounded him and attacked him crazily, almost forcing him into a desperate situation. Ah! He screamed. On the other side, Li Moyuan was surrounded by dozens of elixir soldiers. He coughed up blood and half of his body was crushed. No, stop! Li Moyuan shouted. Lin Tianling glanced at him coldly and said, Kill! The dozens of elixir soldiers seemed to have received the final order, and waved their palms together. Poof! Blood mist exploded. Li Moyuan died tragically, his body and soul destroyed. Looking at this scene, all the cultivators were terrified and their hearts palpitated. The elder of the Taishan sacred ground, an immortal ascension cultivator, was killed. Take your time! Lin Tianling smiled. At this moment, the medicine encyclopedia was activated in his divine sense. The primary instruction rumbled, and a powerful elixir chi overflowed, controlling all the elixir soldiers. After killing Li Moyuan, the number of elixir soldiers increased. With a thought, dozens of elixir soldiers pressed toward the solar physique. Boom! The terrifying power shook all directions. Thank you for taking care of me before. Lin Tianling smiled. At this moment, more than 30 elixir soldiers pressed toward Li Guhuang, comparable to more than 30 immortal ascension cultivators. Hand of gods! Solar sea! Li Guhuang shouted coldly. Li Guhuang was really terrifying. He faced more than 30 elixir soldiers that were comparable to immortal ascension cultivators at the same time. Although he almost died, he always survived. In the process, Li Guhuang even shattered a few elixir soldiers. You can indeed kill immortal ascension cultivators. But how many can you kill? Lin Tianling's eyes were cold. With a thought, a group of elixir soldiers pressed forward, and their auras rumbled. No matter how strong and monstrous Li Guhuang was, it was impossible for him to block so many elixirs that were comparable to immortal ascension cultivators. A moment later, the hand of God shattered, and the solar sea was broken. He was sent flying again and crashed into an old tree in the distance. Ah! On the other side, someone shouted. Bai Qingying and Luo Suying were fighting with more than 20 elixir soldiers. Violent divine power surged in all directions like a flood. Ka! With a crisp sound, the small palace was shattered into pieces. Immediately, a strong pill fragrance wafted out. A jade bottle rushed out, and there were 2 baodan pills in it. They were as clear as mutton fat jade. Most importantly, there were 7 small holes on the 2 baodan pills. It was very strange. 7 orifices exquisite pill! The ancient life-prolonging pill can extend one's lifespan by 500 years. There really is a life-prolonging pill! Someone exclaimed. Instantly, everyone's eyes turned red. Especially Bai Qingying and Luo Suying. Their lifespans were about to dry up. They only had a few decades left at most. Now that they saw the 7 orifices exquisite pill that could extend their lifespans by 500 years, they were extremely excited. For people like them, the 7 orifices exquisite pill was 1,000,000 times more tempting than the heavenly venerate secret technique. The 2 of them activated their divine power and rushed into the sky, grabbing the jade bottle. 2 beams of light shot out from Li Guhuang's eyes. He held up the solar sea and jumped up. Humph! Pitsang's eyes were ferocious. He held up the barren heaven world and grabbed the jade bottle. The other cultivators' eyes lit up, but they didn't dare to move at all. Among the 4 cultivators, 2 of them were immortal ascension cultivators, and the other 2 had king bodies. One of them could even kill an immortal ascension cultivator. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't dare to rush to their deaths. Boom! Divine power vibrated, twisting the space. The 4 cultivators were all severely injured, but at this moment, they unleashed powerful auras. Especially Li Guhuang and Pitsang. Both of them had king bodies, and their blood qi was dense. Even though they were severely injured, they were still very powerful. Whoosh! Suddenly, there was a flash of light. An elixir soldier grabbed the jade bottle and landed beside Lin Tian. Immediately, everyone's expression changed. Lin Tian took the jade bottle. His eyes flashed. He had obtained the 7 orifices exquisite pill, which could increase his lifespan by 500 years. I can't believe that person got it. The legendary Baodan, with 500 years of lifespan. This? Many people clenched their fists and stared at Lin Tian. If it weren't for the elixir soldiers standing beside Lin Tian, someone would have rushed up to snatch it. A Baodan with 500 years of lifespan. Even a peak-stage immortal ascension cultivator would be envious. 500 years of lifespan was filled with endless possibilities. Hand it over. Luo Suying shouted. Bai Qingying, the sun body, and the desolate monster body all stared at Lin Tian. Lin Tian said with disdain, You're about to die, and you're still thinking about the Baodan. Chapter 381. Lin Tian stared at the 4 of them with an indifferent expression and cold eyes. Full text to read, you 8. Kill! He put away the jade bottle that contained the 7 orifices exquisite pill and said coldly. Boom! 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 Dozens of elixir soldiers turned around and charged at the 4 of them. Those elixir soldiers were blurry and their faces could not be seen clearly. They did not have any emotions, nor did they speak. However, the aura they exuded was extremely terrifying. Each of them was as powerful as an immortal. Damn it! Luo Suying's face turned pale as he dodged in a hurry. 5 elixir soldiers were coming at him. The 7 orifices exquisite pill could extend one's lifespan by 500 years. It was precisely for this reason that he came here and exhausted all his strength. However, he did not expect that the precious pill would be snatched away by a flight cultivator. Moreover, at this moment, he, who was heavily injured, was facing 5 elixir weapons and directly fell into a dangerous situation of death. ****. Bai Qingying was forced to the front by 6 elixir soldiers. Compared to the 2 of them, Li Guhuang and Petsang had undoubtedly received special treatment. Bang! Petsang was sent flying and crashed into a place not far away. 30 elixir soldiers were charging at him. Petsang roared. Although his body was covered in blood, his eyes were still fierce and terrifying like knives. Boom! On the other side, treasure lights trembled and intertwined in the void. 40 elixir soldiers charged at Li Guhuang. Each of them was as powerful as an immortal. They forced Li Guhuang to retreat. The 2 king physiques were facing dozens of treasure weapons each. They were on the verge of death. Are we really going to kill the 2 king physiques? The second heaven will be in chaos! Someone was horrified. Whoosh! Whoosh! Bang! Bang! With 2 crisp sounds, Li Guhuang and Pitsang were sent flying and vomited blood. At this point, it was useless no matter how strong they were. They were surrounded by dozens of elixir soldiers and had used up more than half of their true essence. Break! Destroy! Slash! Li Guhuang's eyes were cold as he said word by word. The powerful killing power appeared and blasted a few elixir soldiers away. One of them was even shattered on the spot. Such terrifying battle prowess caused the hearts of the cultivators to palpitate. The solar body Li Guhuang was as terrifying as the rumors said, able to kill immortal connecting realm experts. God-slaying! Another roar rang out. Pitsang's eyes were ferocious. His silver hair danced chaotically as he smashed the Dan weapon to pieces. This, the desolate demon body, can also slaughter immortal reaching immortal cultivators. After the king's physique supports the king's region, he can fight across 8 small realms. He is in the 3rd tier of the Zephyr realm, only 7 small steps away from the connecting fairy realm. When he goes crazy, he seems to be able to tear apart fairies. The hearts of many cultivators trembled. Who could resist the king physique? Lin Tian narrowed his eyes and stared at Pitsang, the desolate demon physique, and Li Guhuang, the sun physique. He had to admit that these two were really strong, especially Li Guhuang, who seemed to be invincible. In addition to the previous battle, he had already torn apart 6 Dan weapons, which was equivalent to killing 6 immortal experts, and that was under the premise of being attacked by a group of people. Staring at the two of them, his eyes grew colder and colder. U8 Novel Network, /. After a few dozen breaths, the two of them looked even more miserable, having suffered unimaginable injuries. Lin Tian glanced at Pitsang and finally looked at Li Guhuang. Sun physique, I'll send you to hell. He took a step forward and crossed 100 feet, arriving in front of Li Guhuang in the blink of an eye. There was nothing to say. He raised his fist and directly punched down. Boom! The silver iron fist smashed into the void, causing ripples to spread out in all directions. Li Guhuang's eyes were cold, and he faced Lin Tian with a palm strike. Bang! The fist and palm collided, and Li Guhuang was directly sent flying, staggering 100 feet away. Lin Tian's eyes were indifferent. With a thought, dozens of Dan weapons followed him and pressed toward Li Guhuang. It was still a simple punch, but it immediately crushed the space. What a freakish physical body. It's not inferior to the king physique. How did this guy cultivate? Terrifying. The crowd's hearts palpitated. Lin Tian's fist was intertwined with silver light, as if an immortal star was falling. Its power was terrifying. Li Guhuang took out a treasure shield, but it was smashed into pieces on the spot. Moreover, dozens of Dan weapons pressed forward, each waving their big hands, which was equivalent to displaying a magical power. Buzz. Light flickered, and Li Guhuang held up the sun ocean. The scorching sun burned, causing the space to instantly become scorching hot. U8 Novel Network. Equals. The killing light of dozens of Dan weapons was blocked outside, but Li Guhuang also trembled violently a few times. At this moment, a light flashed, and Lin Tian directly rushed into the sun ocean, leaving afterimages with each step. He instantly appeared in front of Li Guhuang and landed a punch on Li Guhuang's cheek. Bang! This punch directly sent Li Guhuang flying. The crowd gasped. The powerful sun physique, the undisputed number 1 of the younger generation, was sent flying. What a thick skin! Lin Tianling said. He didn't stop. With a flash of his feet, he pressed forward again. At this moment, Li Guhuang was already seriously injured, and his true essence was less than 40%. He was no longer his opponent at all. Buzz. He propped up the divining divine technique and projected the place where heavenly venerable Daoren comprehended the Tao. The stone platform and stone walls appeared horizontally, and its power was terrifying. Li Guhuang retreated, and the sun ocean appeared again to face Lin Tian. The two collided, bursting into divine light. Again. Lin Tianling said. He stepped on the yin and yang hua and flashed over. He formed a seal with both hands, and a scorching sun ocean rushed out from behind him. The scorching sun was round and emitted a blazing light, causing the space to burn. Sun ocean? Isn't that the king's territory of the sun physique? How did he cast it? The cultivator's hearts trembled. Li Guhuang was bleeding from the corners of his mouth, but his eyes were extremely cold, as if they could pierce through their souls. U8 Xiao said. Lin Tianling smiled and pressed down. Aren't you very powerful? I'll send you on your way with your king's region. He was now in his peak state and had dozens of alchemy soldiers protecting him. He could be considered invincible. Even if the masters of the sacred ground families came, they would only end up being killed. Bang! Once again, Li Guhuang was sent flying, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Li Guhuang's eyes were cold, and his hands moved, forming seals one after another. He manifested a great technique that shook the surroundings. It's futile. Lin Tianling was indifferent. With a thought, dozens of alchemy soldiers rushed forward, not giving Li Guhuang a chance to use them at all. Boom! Violent divine power intertwined, and Li Guhuang immediately retreated. The seals he formed were instantly disrupted. At this moment, Lin Tian pressed forward. He propped up the Sun Ocean, the barren heaven world, and the divine Cry Temple. He pressed down with the three kings' regions, distorting the void on the spot. With a bang, Li Guhuang was sent flying, vomiting large mouthfuls of blood. Standing up, Li Guhuang looked extremely disheveled. His hair was disheveled, and his body was covered in blood. However, his eyes were still very cold, and there was no change from the beginning to the end. What a detestable gaze! Lin Tian was displeased. There was nothing much to say. He took a step forward, and dozens of alchemy soldiers moved with him, pressing down on Li Guhuang with all their might. To Li Guhuang, this was undoubtedly a disaster. Divine Sea overturning. Li Guhuang shouted coldly. A divine sea rushed up, and the light waves flickered like the scales of a dragon. It was so dazzling that one could not open their eyes. Moreover, an extremely terrifying power surged, like raging waves crashing against the shore, engulfing the heavens. Divine sea overturning? It's useless even if you're a god, Lin Tianling said. He propped up the three kings' regions and directly stepped over. Under the pressure of the three kings' regions, dozens of alchemy soldiers attacked together, crushing Li Guhuang's great divine power on the spot and sending him flying. Ah! At this moment, a scream was heard. In the distance, Luo Suying was surrounded by a few alchemy soldiers in the center, and several bloody holes were pierced through his body. At this moment, Luo Suying's aura was at its weakest. He actually retreated and escaped. Trying to escape? Lin Tian tilted his head, took a step forward, and punched down. The powerful punch shattered the space and landed heavily on Luo Suying's body. His physique was already very strong. Coupled with the fact that he had undergone a heavenly tribulation and had been cleansed by lightning, his physical body was even more terrifying now. How could the weak and seriously injured Luo Suying withstand this punch? Half of his body was directly smashed into pieces. Clang! Lin Tian waved his right hand, and a superior-grade true treasure sword appeared and swung it at Luo Suying. Stop! Poof! With a flash of blood, Luo Suying's head was chopped off. Many cultivators stared at this scene with a chill in their hearts. By taming Li Moyuan, Luo Suying, he killed 3 immortal powerhouses in a row in one day. The Bai family, the Taishan Sacred Land, and the All Tong Sacred Land. He's offending all the major forces. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. The superior-grade true treasure sword was stained with blood. Lin Tian's eyes were cold as he turned his head and stared at Bai Qingying of the Bai family. He took a step forward and directly pressed over. Clang! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing. He used the Yang incinerating sword technique and created a shocking sword aura. Bai Qingying was facing the attacks of several elixir soldiers. She was already on the verge of death, and her body was covered in blood. At this moment, Lin Tian's sword pressed down, and she could not dodge. She was directly hit in the chest, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, several elixir soldiers approached and sent her flying dozens of feet away again. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. The yin-yang ho flashed and arrived in front of Bai Qingying in the blink of an eye. Hum! He pressed his fist down, and the space distorted as it landed between Bai Qingying's eyebrows. With a bang, Bai Qingying was sent flying. She felt as if the world was shaking. Blood flowed down from her head, dyeing her entire old face red. Lin Tian stepped forward, and his superior-grade true treasure sword shone coldly. Bai Qingying only felt a chill down her spine, and her mind became much clearer. Lin Tian, stop! You're playing with fire. Do you want to fight to the death with the Bai family? At this moment, a trace of fear finally appeared in Bai Qingying's eyes as she stared at Lin Tian. What a joke! The situation has been like this for a long time. Other than that person from the Bai family, I'll kill everyone else I see. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. After killing you, it'll be Bai Hongye's turn. None of the three of you will live. With a clang, the long sword in his hand pierced between Bai Qingying's eyebrows, and the sword shattered her head. Blood splattered on the ground, and it was a shocking sight. Gulp! Someone swallowed their saliva. Another immortal powerhouse had died. 4 immortal powerhouses had come here with their immortal might, but now, all of them were dead. They died at the hands of the same person, at the hands of a flight cultivator. After today, this heavenly region will be shaken. Everyone's hearts palpitated. Chapter 382. Lin Tian stared at the 4 of them with an indifferent expression. Reading U8 small spoken net by U8. Inch kill. He put away the jade bottle with the 7 orifices exquisite pill and said coldly. Boom! 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 Dozens of elixir soldiers turned around and charged at the 4 of them. Those elixir soldiers were blurry and their faces could not be seen clearly. They did not have any emotions, nor did they speak. However, the aura they emitted was extremely terrifying. Each of them was as powerful as an immortal. Damn it! Luo Suying's face was pale as he dodged in a hurry. 5 elixir soldiers came at him. The 7 orifices exquisite pill could extend one's lifespan by 500 years. That was why he came here and tried his best. However, he did not expect that the Baodan would be taken away by a flying cultivator. At this moment, he was facing 5 elixir soldiers. He was in danger of dying. B*****. Bai Qingying was forced to the front by 6 elixir soldiers. Compared to the 2 of them, Li Guhuang and Petsung undoubtedly received special treatment. Bang! Petsung was sent flying and crashed into the ground not far away. 30 elixir soldiers came at him. Petsung roared. Although his body was covered in blood, his eyes were still ferocious and terrifying like knives. Boom! On the other side, treasure lights trembled and intertwined in the void. 40 elixir soldiers came at Li Guhuang. Each of them was as powerful as an immortal, forcing him to retreat. The 2 king physiques were facing dozens of treasure weapons each. They barely escaped death. Are we really going to kill the 2 king physiques? The second heaven will be in chaos. Someone was horrified. Bang! 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 With 2 crisp sounds, Li Guhuang and Petsung were sent flying and vomited blood. At this point, it was useless no matter how strong they were. They were surrounded by dozens of elixir soldiers and had used up more than half of their true essence. Break! Destroy! Slash! Li Guhuang's eyes were cold as he said word by word. A powerful killing force appeared and blasted a few elixir soldiers away. One of them was even shattered on the spot. Such terrifying combat power made the cultivators' hearts palpitate. The sun body, Li Guhuang, was as terrifying as the rumors said. He could kill immortal connecting realms. God-slaying! Another roar rang out. Petsung's eyes were ferocious. His silver hair danced wildly as he smashed the Dan weapon into pieces. This, the barren demon body can also slaughter connecting immortals? After the king's body supports the king's territory, one can fight across 8 small realms. He is at the 3rd level of the Zephyr realm, only 7 small steps away from the connecting celestial realm. When he goes crazy, he seems to be able to tear celestials apart. The hearts of many cultivators trembled. Who could resist a king physique? Lin Tian narrowed his eyes and stared fixedly at Petsung, the desolate demon physique, and Li Guhuang, the sun physique. He had to admit that these 2 were really strong, especially Li Guhuang, who seemed to be invincible. In addition to the previous battle, he had already torn apart 6 elixir soldiers, which was equivalent to killing 6 immortal reaching realm masters, and that was under the premise of being attacked by a group. Staring at the 2 of them, his eyes grew colder and colder. U8 Novel Network. Slash. Another few tens of breaths passed, and the two of them seemed to be in an even more sorry state. Both of them had suffered unimaginable heavy injuries. Lin Tian glanced at Pitsang and finally looked at Li Guhuang. Sun Physique, I'll send you to hell. He took a step forward and crossed 100 feet, arriving in front of Li Guhuang in the blink of an eye. There was nothing to say. He raised his fist and directly punched down. Boom! The silver iron fist smashed into the void, causing ripples to spread out in all directions. Li Guhuang's eyes were cold, and he faced Lin Tian with a palm strike. Bang! The fist and palm collided. Li Guhuang was directly sent flying, and he staggered back 100 feet. Lin Tian's eyes were indifferent. With a move of his mind, dozens of elixir soldiers followed him and pressed down on Li Guhuang. It was still a simple punch, but it immediately crushed the space. What a freakish physical body! It's not inferior to a king physique. How did this guy cultivate? Terrifying! The crowd's hearts palpitated. Lin Tian's fist was intertwined with silver light, like an immortal star falling with terrifying power. Li Guhuang took out a precious shield, but it was smashed into pieces on the spot. Moreover, dozens of elixir soldiers pressed forward, each waving their big hands, which was equivalent to displaying a magical power. Buzz! Light flashed, and Li Guhuang held up the sun ocean. The scorching sun burned, causing the space to instantly become scorching hot. The killing light of dozens of elixir soldiers was blocked outside, but Li Guhuang also trembled violently. At this moment, a light flashed, and Lin Tian directly rushed into the sun ocean, leaving after images with each step. He instantly appeared in front of Li Guhuang and landed a punch on Li Guhuang's cheek. Bang! This punch directly sent Li Guhuang flying. The crowd gasped. The powerful Sun Physique, the undisputed number one of the younger generation, was sent flying. What a thick skin! Lin Tianling said. He didn't stop. His steps swayed, and he pressed forward again. At this moment, Li Guhuang was already seriously injured, and his vital essence was less than 40%. He was no match for him at all. Buzz! He propped up the divine technique and projected the place where heavenly venerable Daoren comprehended the Tao. The stone platform and stone walls appeared horizontally, and its power was terrifying. Li Guhuang retreated, and the sun ocean appeared again to face Lin Tian. The two collided, bursting into divine light. Again! Lin Tianling said. He stepped on the yin and yang hua and flashed over. He formed a seal with both hands, and a scorching sun ocean rushed out from behind him. The scorching sun was round and emitted a blazing light, causing the space to burn. Sun ocean? Isn't that the king's territory of the Sun Physique? How did he cast it? The cultivator's hearts trembled. Li Guhuang was bleeding from the corners of his mouth, but his eyes were extremely cold, as if they could pierce through their souls. Lin Tianling smiled and pressed down on him. Aren't you very powerful? I'll send you on your way with your king's territory. He was now in his peak state, and with dozens of elixir soldiers protecting him, he could be considered invincible. Even if the masters of the sacred land families came, they would only end up being killed. Bang! Once again, Li Guhuang was sent flying, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Li Guhuang's eyes were cold, and his hands moved, forming seals one after another. He manifested a great technique that shook the surroundings. It's futile! Lin Tianling was indifferent. With a thought, dozens of elixir soldiers rushed forward, not giving Li Guhuang a chance to use them at all. Boom! Violent divine power intertwined, and Li Guhuang immediately retreated. The seals that he formed were instantly disrupted. At this moment, Lin Tian pressed forward. He propped up the Sun Ocean, the barren heaven realm, and the divine Cry Temple, using the three kings' territories to suppress him, distorting the void on the spot. With a bang, Li Guhuang was sent flying, vomiting large mouthfuls of blood. Standing up, Li Guhuang looked extremely disheveled. His hair was disheveled, and his body was covered in blood. However, his eyes were still very cold, and there was no change from the beginning to the end. What a detestable gaze! Lin Tian was displeased. There was nothing much to say. He took a step forward, and dozens of elixir soldiers moved with him, pressing towards Li Guhuang with all their might. To Li Guhuang, this was undoubtedly a disaster. Divine Sea overturning! Li Guhuang shouted coldly. A divine sea rushed up, shining like the scales of a dragon. It was so dazzling that it was difficult to open one's eyes. Moreover, an extremely terrifying aura surged, like raging waves crashing against the shore, sweeping through the heavens. Divine sea overturning? It's useless even if you're a divine being, Lin Tianling said. He propped up the three kings' territories and directly stepped over. Under the pressure of the three kings' territories, dozens of elixir soldiers attacked together, crushing Li Guhuang's great divine power on the spot and sending him flying. Ah! At this moment, a scream was heard. In the distance, Luo Suying was surrounded by a few elixir soldiers in the center, and several bloody holes were pierced through his body. At this moment, Luo Suying's aura was extremely weak, and he actually retreated, fleeing outside. Trying to escape? Lin Tian tilted his head, took a step forward, and pressed down with a punch. The powerful punch shattered the space and landed heavily on Luo Suying's body. His physique was already very strong, and after going through a heavenly tribulation and cleansing his flesh and blood with lightning, his physical body was even more terrifying now. How could the weak and seriously injured Luo Suying withstand this punch? Half of his body was directly smashed into pieces. Clang! Lin Tian waved his right hand, and a superior-grade supreme treasure sword appeared and swung it at Luo Suying. Stop! Poof! With a flash of blood, Luo Suying's head was chopped off. Many cultivators stared at this scene, and their hearts turned cold. By taming Li Moyuan, Luo Suying, he killed 3 immortal ascension powerhouses in one day? The Bai family, the Taishan sacred land, and the Wantong sacred land. He's offending all of them. Everyone sucked in a cold breath. The superior-grade supreme treasure sword was stained with blood. Lin Tian's eyes were cold as he tilted his head and stared at Bai Qingying of the Bai family. He took a step forward and directly pressed over. Clang! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing. He used the Yang incinerating sword technique, and a shocking sword aura swept up. Bai Qingying was facing the attacks of several elixir soldiers. She was already on the verge of death, and her body was covered in blood. At this moment, Lin Tian's sword pressed down, and she could not dodge. She was directly hit in the chest, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, several elixir soldiers approached and sent her flying dozens of feet away again. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. The yin and yang ho flashed and arrived in front of Bai Qingying in the blink of an eye. Hum! He pressed down with a punch, and the space distorted as it landed between Bai Qingying's eyebrows. With a bang, Bai Qingying was sent flying. She felt as if the world was shaking. Blood flowed down from her head, dyeing her entire old face red. Lin Tian stepped forward, and his superior-grade supreme treasure sword shone with a cold light. Bai Qingying only felt a chill down her spine, and her mind became much clearer. Lin Tian, stop! You're playing with fire. Do you want to fight to the death with the Bai family? At this moment, a trace of fear finally appeared in Bai Qingying's eyes as she stared at Lin Tian. What a joke! This has been the situation for a long time. Other than that person from the Bai family, I'll kill everyone else I see. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. After killing you, it'll be Bai Hongye's turn. None of the 3 of you will live. With a clang, the long sword in his hand pierced through Bai Qingying's forehead, and the sword shattered her head. Blood splattered on the ground, and it was a shocking sight. Gulp! Someone swallowed their saliva. Another immortal powerhouse had died. 4 immortal powerhouses had come here with their immortal might, but now, all of them were dead. They died at the hands of the same person, at the hands of a flying cultivator. After today, this heavenly region will be shaken. Everyone's hearts palpitated. Chapter 383. Bai Qingying, Li Muyuan, and Luo Suying, the four transcending celestial realm powerhouses, were the giants of this heaven, representing the Bai family, the Taishan Holy Land, and the Wantong Holy Land respectively. But now, in just one day, four powerful giants were all killed in front of a flying cultivator, shocking everyone here. Full text is almost equal to want to see? Book and X11KANSHUC. Clin Tian's eyes were indifferent. He held the sword in his right hand and stared at the sun body and the desolate demon body. It's your turn, he said coldly. Dozens of elixir soldiers pressed forward at the same time. Li Moyuan, Bai Qingying, and Luo Suying were all dead, so there were more elixir soldiers. Li Guhuang and Pitsang were shocked and tried to break out. You can't escape, Lin Tianling said. Stepping on the yin and yang lian, he swayed one step and blocked in front of the two people. With a clang, the ninth sword move of the yang incinerating sword was performed. The sky was filled with fiery sword auras and roared like a hurricane. As far as the eye could see, streaks of blazing sword light rained down like a rain of light, densely shooting towards the sun physique and desolate demon physique, not giving them any space to dodge. At the same time, dozens of elixir soldiers stepped forward and punched. Boom! This was a powerful combination attack that completely sealed the space in all directions. Even an ant couldn't crawl out. Li Guhuang's eyes were cold. He supported the sun seed to protect himself, and used the god's hand to defeat the incoming yang incinerating sword auras. In the other direction, the desolate demon body did the same. He supported the barren heaven realm and brought out the god-slaying palm print. An astonishing collision swept up waves of destructive true essence. It all depended on the momentum. Bang! Bang! After the wind and waves, the two king bodies were sent flying. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and their hair was scattered. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent as he stared at Li Guhuang and took a step forward. The sun body, the top cultivator of your generation, can kill immortal ascension overlords. How can you be like this? Lin Tian said sarcastically. He moved closer to Li Guhuang, and without saying anything else, he directly pressed down with his fist. His cultivation was not as good as Li Guhuang's, and there was a gap of 7 small steps between them, but his physical body was not any weaker than his opponent's. Not to mention, Li Guhuang was seriously injured at the moment, and his true essence was insufficient, so how could he block his tyrannical iron fist? With a boom, a simple punch came crashing down, and the space around it trembled. Li Guhuang raised his fist to block, and he was sent flying on the spot. He smashed fiercely into a rock wall in the distance, and the sound of bones breaking resounded. He really can take a beating. Lin Tian stepped forward and pressed forward again. Li Guhuang's face was covered in blood and his hair was in a mess. He was in an extremely sorry state. Even though there were no Dan weapons surrounding him, he was no match for Lin Tian at this moment. He was kicked around by Lin Tian. However, his eyes remained cold the entire time. Even though the true essence in his body was insufficient, his life aura was incomparably exuberant, not weakening by much, blazing like a blazing sun. On the other side, Pitsang was facing dozens of Dan weapons. He kept retreating, but like Li Guhuang, his life aura was endless. After sweeping away a Dan weapon, Pitsang tilted his head and stared at Lin Tian. His eyes were extremely ferocious, sharper than knives. How dare you stare at me when you're about to die? Lin Tianling laughed. His right hand shook, and the 9 forms of the burning sun was pushed to the limit, and he slashed at Pitsang. Want is an element of is not equal to and is identical to reading 1cc. Clang! The sword whistled and a powerful destructive force surged, forcing the seriously injured Pitsang to retreat. I'll smash you into pieces, Lin Tianling said. In this space, shadows appeared one after another. Lin Tian pushed the yin-yang puppet to the limit and kept punching. Bang! 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 Pitsang was unlucky. In the blink of an eye, he was hit by dozens of punches from Lin Tian, and every punch was bloody. Lin Tian! Pitsang shouted. As the saint of the demon race and a barren demon body, he had always crushed strong enemies. When had he ever been so humiliated? Don't shout so loudly. I'm right here, Lin Tian replied. Of course, in addition to the voice, there was also a pair of iron fists. Dazzling blood splashed in the air, frightening people's souls. Li Guhuang turned around and ran. I said, none of you can leave, Lin Tianling said. He slashed across the sky. Blazing sword radiance covered all directions, enveloping Li Guhuang in it, and sending him flying with a bang. The divine roar hall, the barren heaven world, the sun ocean, the celestial Lord Doran's enlightenment place, the untainted forest, the precious weapon, the divine bell, and the divine elephant of heaven were all activated by him. They all pressed down on the two king bodies. At this point, even without the Dan weapons, Li Guhuang and Pitsang were no match for him. Even if they worked together, they could only be suppressed. Bang! Bang! Once again, the two king bodies were sent flying and vomited blood. One of them had cold eyes, while the other had fierce eyes. They stared at Lin Tian with murderous intent. As expected of a king body. It's so hard to kill. Lin Tian now. He stepped forward, shaking his fist radiance and sword radiance, killing the two of them. All around, the cultivators were shocked and dumbfounded. Was he really going to kill the two king bodies here? It's rare for a king body to appear. It's rare to see one in hundreds of years. This era is golden. 3 king bodies have appeared in this heavenly realm, but today, 2 of them will be killed? Some people were bitterly disappointed. These people could imagine that once the sun body and the desolate demon body died, the Li family and Mount Tianya would definitely go crazy. Boom! 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 There was an astonishing collision, and beams of divine light shot out. In this small space, Li Guhuang and Pitsang were suppressed by Lin Tian. Now, they had no resistance at all. They could be killed at any time. Dong! At this moment, the small world shook violently, causing the group of cultivators to sway unsteadily. Suddenly, beams of light shot out from the ground, including the main hall in front of them. 5 different lights shot up. Sway 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 shu equals 1 carat ka carat and equals shu. The beams of light intertwined, showing a strange trajectory. What's this? Lin Tian took a closer look, and his expression changed. 5 different types of light rushed out from 5 different places. There were 2 types in the hall in front of him, 2 types in the medicinal garden, and 1 type in front of him. It spread out from the various pill soldiers and presented a resplendent golden light. Further away, a fierce roar shot up, and a beam of dark light shot through the sky. What's that? The fallen immortal land? Is that the fallen immortal land? I can't believe there are roars and beast cries. This energy. Many cultivators were shocked. At this moment, the dark light shot through the sky and the ground in the direction of the fallen immortal land, and a terrifying energy wave swept out instantly. This energy wave was so powerful that it made people tremble. Even powerful cultivators like Li Guhuang and Pitsang changed their expressions. This energy was far more powerful than a cultivator at the immortal connecting realm. Great misfortune! Roar! Another loud roar shook the sky and the ground, and many small black dots appeared in the sky. At the same time, the 5 lights in front of the palace became stronger and brighter, and then dimmed. Lin Tian's expression changed, and he suddenly thought of something. The fire-gathering seal represents fire, the water-sealing seal represents water, the immortal plants in the herb garden represent wood, this land represents earth, and the vast spirit pill represents metal. This is the 5 elements seal? Looking at the direction of the fallen immortal land, his previous doubts were finally solved. When the master apothecary created the small space here, he set up the palace, carved the fire-gathering seal, and the water-sealing seal. Was he setting up the 5 elements seal to suppress a great misfortune in the fallen immortal land? The 5 elements seal was a spell recorded in the medicine encyclopedia. It was very powerful, and it was not weaker than the 4 symbols seal. Rumble! The small space shook violently, and cracks appeared on the ground, and dust kept flying into the sky. At the same time, the clouds in the sky were shaken away, and dark light covered all directions. Lin Tian's expression changed. He did not feel any evil energy, but he felt an extremely domineering energy wave. Crack! 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 The sound of eggshells cracking could be heard. In this space, the cultivators' faces turned pale, and they were trembling. Roar! Another fierce roar shook the sky. An even more violent black light surged up. Then, a pair of blood-red eyes lit up within the huge black light pillar. They were like two blood moons, causing everyone to tremble. They felt as if their hearts were being gripped by a sharp claw. Looking at the blood-red eyes, some people stepped back and gasped for breath. Lin Tian, Li Guhuang, and Pitsang were all shocked. What the hell is this? Pitsang was shocked. The demon saint had always been fierce and domineering, but at this moment, he was also shocked, and he felt a chill down his spine. The blood-red eyes stared at them. Suddenly, another loud roar was heard. Suddenly, a dark hurricane swept out. In the blink of an eye, everything in the hurricane's path was destroyed. In the sky, the dark light dispersed, revealing a huge monster. This was a ferocious creature with blood-red eyes, a robust body covered in bull-sized pitch-black scales, and a pair of wings that were over 30 m long. Its neck was thick and long, and there were 2 horns on its head. Its sharp teeth were comparable to divine weapons, and its entire body was coiled with strands of jet-black light, causing it to be a terrifying and awe-inspiring sight. Staring at this enormous creature, many people felt as if their souls were about to shatter with just a single glance. That's dragon? How can that be? Is there really such a creature? Everyone was stunned. Lin Tian's expression also changed. According to the Demon Beast catalog, it was very similar to this creature, and it was named Dragon. However, it was rare to see such an ancient creature even in ancient times. It was truly a great disaster. Soon, he thought of another question, and his expression changed again. The Master Apothecary sealed such a great disaster back then? But that's impossible. The Master Apothecary lived in ancient times, and it was at least hundreds of thousands of years ago. How could the great disaster that was sealed back then survive until now? Under the power of time, it should have turned into dust long ago. The power of time was the most terrifying. No matter how powerful one was, it would be difficult to escape the suppression of time. In the long river of time, everything would be slowly corroded and turn into dust. Even a peak chaotic realm existence could not escape this fate. That was why all living things pursued eternal life and wanted to escape death. How can this be? Lin Tian was puzzled. A peak chaotic realm existence only had a lifespan of 100,000 years. The Master Apothecary lived in ancient times, and the great disaster that was sealed in that era could not have survived until now. Boom! The dark light vibrated, and a gale swept across. That dragon, it's flying over here! Someone shouted, and his expression changed. P.S. From today onwards, the update time has been adjusted. The first update is 12 noon, and the second update is 18 p.m. If there are any changes, the dragon will tell you in advance. Chapter 384. The jet-black hurricane swept over. Before it even got close, it had already destroyed everything. No pops up, less than or equal to internet is not equal to. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Crack! The hall left by the Master Apothecary at the front collapsed. Lin Tian's expression changed. How terrifying was that? It was dozens of times more terrifying than the 4 demon gods in the Demon Burial Valley. Li Guhuang and Pitsang were also shocked. The Sun Ocean and the barren heaven world were supported at the same time. The wind swept in all directions, scarier than sharp blades. Damn it! Lin Tian clenched his teeth and supported the yin-yang lotus seed to protect himself. The black dragon didn't arrive. It was still some distance away, but the wind had destroyed everything. Puff! 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 Some weaker cultivators exploded on the spot, turning into blood mist in the wind. Such a scene instantly scared everyone silly. Some of the more powerful cultivators retreated in fear. Finally, the black dragon arrived. Its body was shockingly huge, and its blood-red eyes looked down. Boom! 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 Divine light shot up. Dozens of elixir soldiers broke free from Lin Tian's control and attacked the black dragon. Those elixir soldiers were left by the master apothecary to suppress the fallen immortal land. Now that the black dragon appeared, the elixir soldiers seemed to sense their natural enemy and rushed over. At this moment, the energy of the elixir soldiers was much stronger than before. Everyone was shocked. So powerful! Those elixir soldiers should be able to suppress that monster. Yes, there are dozens of them. Greater than over equal to? Greater than over equal to? Is almost equal to. Someone said. But the next moment, everyone's expression changed. The black dragon's eyes were blood-red. It opened its mouth and roared. More than 30 elixir soldiers were instantly crushed. At the same time, many cultivators were killed by the roar. More than 30 elixir soldiers comparable to immortal reaching immortal realm cultivators were instantly. It's more powerful than immortal reaching immortal realm cultivators. Who can stop it? It's over. It's over. Why is there such a monster here? Everyone was in despair. The black dragon's eyes were red. It hovered in the sky like a demon king looking down at the world. Everyone was terrified. Without a doubt, it was a terrifying being. In this place, no one could stop him. Facing this black dragon, even Li Guhuang and Pitsang could only be on guard and restrain their auras. The black dragon stared at the group of cultivators below as if it was staring at a group of lowly ants. Suddenly its blood-red eyes fell on Lin Tian, and it immediately roared again. Boom! An even more terrifying wave spread out, shaking the heavens. The black dragon rushed towards Lin Tian. Lin Tian's expression suddenly changed, and a chill ran down his spine. An unprecedented sense of death assaulted his senses, making him feel as if he had fallen into hell. The honorable apothecary sealed the fallen immortal land back then. Could it be that the medicine canon in my body has been sensed? Could it be that the aura of the honorable apothecary from back then is still present? At this moment, Lin Tian was terrified and quickly retreated. With a single thought, dozens of elixir soldiers appeared to welcome the attack. Then, he stepped on the Yin and Yang Ho and fled. Net greater than or equal to. The black dragon was too terrifying. It was even more terrifying than the 4 demon gods in the demon burial valley. He couldn't block a single attack from it. Chi! 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 The black dragon raised its claws and instantly tore all the elixir soldiers apart. A gust of wind blew, and a series of banging sounds were heard. Everyone was thrown out. The black dragon looked down at the sky and arrived above Lin Tian's head in the blink of an eye. Oh no! Lin Tian's expression changed, and he suddenly felt a deep sense of despair. How could he resist such a terrifying creature? Roar! The black dragon roared, opened its bloody mouth and rushed towards Lin Tian fiercely. First Heaven, Governor Feng's city Dark Forest. The Dark Forest was vast and boundless, and there were countless beasts roaring and roaring in the forest every day. At this moment, a pair of cold eyes suddenly opened in the deepest part of the forest. It was a little girl of 11 or 12 years old. Her soft black hair reached her waist, and her dress was pure white. She looked like the most beautiful fairy. Staring at the sky, the little girl's eyes were deeper than the starry sky, as if she could see through time and space. The fallen immortal land, formed after hundreds of thousands of years. It was born at the peak of Nirvana. Nether demonic dragon. With a cold voice, the girl waved her left hand and tore open the void. She pointed her finger at it. In the second heaven, the black dragon rushed towards Lin Tian, arriving in the blink of an eye. He's dead! Someone was horrified. Chu less than or equal to, however, in the next moment, a spatial crack suddenly appeared in front of Lin Tian, and a purple light rushed out. Puff! Blood sputtered, sprinkling all over the sky. These bloodstains were extremely terrifying, and the aura contained within was extremely domineering, causing the space to collapse. In the void, the black dragon's abdomen was penetrated, and it rolled hundreds of feet away. What's going on? That madman, he injured that terrifying black dragon? Everyone stared at him. In the distance, Li Guhuang and Pitsung frowned, and their eyes were filled with divine light as they stared at Lin Tian. Lin Tian was also shocked. He didn't do anything at all. Roar! In the distance, an angry roar sounded. Black light rushed into the sky, sweeping in all directions. The black dragon seemed to be very angry, and its violent aura seemed to want to annihilate everything. Peerless, domineering. Staring at Lin Tian, the black dragon rushed over again. This time, the aura of the black dragon was thousands of times more terrifying than before, causing everyone's heart to tremble. Lin Tian was the first to bear the brunt. Under such an aura, he couldn't even move a finger. He could only watch the black dragon crushing towards him. Get lost! At this moment, from the spatial crack in front of him, a cold voice sounded. It was just a single word, and it wasn't loud, but in an instant, the sky of the second heaven exploded. The black dragon stopped abruptly, and the dragon's scales all over its body stood up. A look of fear appeared in its blood-red eyes. Greater than over equal to is identical to V, and V is almost equal to Z. At the same time, Lin Tian's expression changed, revealing a look of surprise. Little Purple? He was too familiar with this voice. It was the voice of the little girl he picked up in the dark forest, the Purple Fairy. There's a voice coming from that spatial crack? What's going on? All the cultivators were shocked. This kind of thing was beyond the understanding of ordinary cultivators. In the sky, the black dragon trembled. In the end, it turned around and fled into the distance, disappearing in the blink of an eye. In this place, many cultivators breathed a sigh of relief. The departure of the black dragon was equivalent to the departure of the source of death. Although I don't know what's going on, it's great, someone said. It was to the extent that some people collapsed and sat on the ground. Only Lin Tian's eyes flickered, staring at the spatial crack in front of him. Little Purple? Is that you? He shouted. In a foreign land, listening to the familiar voice, he was a little excited and happy. In the dark forest, the Purple Fairy looked at the second heaven from a distance, and a charming smile appeared on her cold little face. Lovely and touching. In the next moment, with a hiss, the spatial crack instantly closed. At the same time, in the second heaven, the spatial crack in front of Lin Tian also closed with a hiss and disappeared without a trace. Little Purple! Lin Tian shouted. However, the spatial crack no longer opened, and all traces disappeared. In the surroundings, many cultivators looked at Lin Tian and looked at each other. They didn't know what Lin Tian suddenly shouted. Li Guhuang and Pitsung stared at Lin Tian, their eyes cold and dazzling. The two king physiques were different from ordinary people, and they saw the strangeness of Lin Tian. Lin Tian was searching for the Purple Fairy's aura when he suddenly felt two eyes on him. He immediately turned his head and ignored them. Staring at the two of them, he gradually calmed down, and his eyes flashed with a piercing, killing intent. I'll kill you, he said coldly. With a flash of his feet, he directly rushed over. In the Divine Rumble Temple, the desolate heaven realm, and the Sun Ocean, a group of divine elephants flashed and suppressed the two king physiques. Li Guhuang's eyes were cold, and he faced them with the Sun Ocean. Pitsung's eyes were cold, and he directly held up the desolate heaven realm. Boom! An astonishing collision, and the fierce true essence fluctuations suppressed all directions. After a long while, two figures were sent flying dozens of feet away. They were Li Guhuang and Pitsung. At this moment, the elixir weapons had been completely shattered by the black dragon, but Li Guhuang and Pitsung were already at the end of their rope and didn't have much combat power left. Lin Tian was at his peak, so the two couldn't stop Lin Tian at all. Poof! Lin Tian charged over and punched Li Guhuang in the chest, causing Li Guhuang to cough up large mouthfuls of blood. Li Guhuang's eyes were cold. He formed a seal with both hands and supported the hand of gods. Lin Tian snorted and used the divine art to activate the Bai family's unparalleled divine palm, pressing toward Li Guhuang. After that, he stepped on the yin and yang tai chi and rushed toward Patsang, the desolate demon physique, and slapped down, knocking Patsang into the dust. Again! He said coldly. He formed a seal with both hands, and the sea of 3 leaves and the place where Lord Doran comprehended the way appeared together. With a boom, the 2 sides pressed toward Li Guhuang and Patsang from the left and right. The 2 king physiques stepped back and displayed their spiritual sense visions, flying into the sky. Next time we meet, I'll chop off your head, Li Guhuang said coldly. Then, he flew into the distance. Your life belongs to this king. Keep it. Patsang's eyes were full of ferocity. Lin Tian flew into the sky. Don't even think about leaving. He opened his big hand and covered all directions. The light mist covered the 2 king physiques at the same time. Li Guhuang snorted and didn't resist. He stepped 100 meters away and disappeared instantly. At the same time, Patsang showed his true form with 9 heads and blood wings. He flapped his wings slightly and rushed into the distance. Damn it! Lin Tian wanted to chase after him, but he couldn't. The 2 king physiques wanted to escape. Without the help of the elixir weapons, he found it difficult to catch up. In the small world, a breeze blew. He looked into the distance. The land of the fallen immortals had been completely shattered, and the old forest in the small world was also completely destroyed. Under the destructive power of the black dragon, it had turned into a large desert. He snorted coldly, landed, and glanced at the others. Facing Lin Tian's gaze, everyone trembled. Let's go now! In the blink of an eye, everyone had run away. What a joke! He was a fiend. He had killed the elders of the Bai family, the Taishian sacred ground, and the Wantong sacred ground, and chased after the 2 king physiques. No one dared to stay. If they accidentally angered him, they would be smashed into meat paste in the blink of an eye. Chapter 385. The crowd ran away like a swarm of bees, disappearing in the blink of an eye. The place was now empty. Books greater than or equal to www.1cc because of the Black Dragon's charge. The surroundings of the hall had been completely destroyed. Lin Tian leaped into the air and looked into the distance. He could vaguely see that all the cultivators had left the small world. There was not a single person in this space. He landed and looked behind the small palace. I wonder if there's anything else, he muttered to himself. The small palace had been torn apart. He had obtained 2 7 orifices exquisite pills. After that, the battle was too intense, so no one dared to enter the front. At this time, he was the only one left. He paused for a moment, then walked forward. He opened the broken palace. There were indeed many other things inside, but they were not very valuable. Most of them were leftover materials. Shaking his head, he suddenly looked up and looked deeper. He sensed a strong fluctuation of core qi. What's that? He was curious and walked forward. Behind the small palace was an old forest. Lin Tian stepped into it. After walking for about 15 minutes, he saw a waterfall in front of him. The water flowed down from the top of a mountain. When it fell, it hit some old stones and made splashing sounds. His eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the waterfall. Looking at it, the ancient runes of the Medicine Codex appeared in his sea of consciousness. They danced like butterflies. Lin Tian frowned. He walked on the water and used his vital essence to break through the waterfall. There was another world inside. There was a black cauldron. The cauldron was 1 meter tall. It was carved with all kinds of strange birds and immortal beasts. They were so lifelike that it felt like they were about to burst out of it. At the same time, there were many dried-up medicinal herbs in the cave. There was also a futon covered in dust. As soon as he entered this place, Lin Tian felt an astonishing pill qi, as well as a strange pill rhythm. This feeling was almost the same as when he was at Celestial Lord Doran's martial arts training ground. Master Apothecary once cultivated here! Lin Tian's eyes flashed. The Dantian rhythm in the air was not too strong. It seemed that the Master Apothecary did not stay here for long. However, this was enough to surprise him. Cultivating in the cultivation grounds of the ancient celestial venerables was an immortal opportunity for anyone. Even though it was rumored that the master apothecary had not reached the chaotic realm when he established this place, his strength was shocking enough. Lin Tian came to the front of the praying mat, wiped off the dust on it, and sat down cross-legged. The space behind the waterfall was not large, and one could see everything at a glance. After Lin Tian sat down, he took a deep breath and began to cultivate. He did not circulate the four extremities scriptures. Instead, he studied the medicine canon in his sea of consciousness. Dan is simple. One is simple. Only the Tao is correct, hence the name Dan. If the sky obtains one, it is clear. If the earth obtains one, it is peaceful. If a valley obtains one, it is abundant. If a person obtains one, it is immortal. Alchemy is the Tao, and the Tao is the pill. Alchemy is the Tao, and the Tao is the pill. With life as the source, the mortal world is vast and boundless. The pill cocoon is broken to prove eternal life. Full is like abundance, abundance is like loss, loss is like loss, loss is like gain. He closed his eyes and recited the general outline of the medicine encyclopedia in his sea of consciousness. Buzz! As he recited the general outline of the medicine encyclopedia, the air in this space whistled, and rays of Dan light appeared. The Dan light was black, but there was a kind of godly fluctuation. To read one kanshuc cas if there was a breeze, rays of black Dan light appeared in this space and surrounded Lin Tian's body. Soon, the Dan light vibrated and was as gentle as spring water, slowly seeping into Lin Tian's body. Lin Tian's body trembled, but he soon calmed down. Dan is the Tao, he muttered to himself. After reciting the general outline of the medicine encyclopedia over and over again, and meditating in this small space, Lin Tian gradually understood a bit of the general outline's meaning. The so-called art of alchemy was also the Tao. It was a technique that ancient sages created to break through death. However, they failed in the end and could not rely on the art of alchemy to become immortal. Even so, the art of alchemy could increase a cultivator's lifespan by a lot. This was the origin of the life-extending pill. It could extend a cultivator's lifespan by up to 100,000 years. 100,000 years was already very shocking. Buzz! Lin Tian's body was shrouded in black fog. This black fog was the essence of pill Tao left behind by a master apothecary who had yet to reach the primal chaos realm. At this moment, because of the medicine codex's general outline, it condensed into a material light. As Lin Tian recited the general outline of the medicine codex in his sea of consciousness, the black light slowly entered his body, causing Lin Tian's understanding of the Tao of alchemy to increase bit by bit. Time passed unknowingly. Outside the small world, a group of cultivators walked out. News of the birth of the small world quickly spread. For immortal connecting realm experts were all killed by that Lin Tiansha? How could this be? He can kill immortals right after entering the Zephyr realm? Impossible! You can't boast like that even if you want to. Is identical to I want to read is identical to 1cc. Many people shook their heads in disbelief. To be able to kill immortals at the early stage of the Zephyr plane was too exaggerated. Even someone with a king body could not do it. However, as more and more news spread, some of the people who didn't believe it were all shaken. Is it true? It's true. It's said that there are dozens of terrifying elixir weapons in the small world that are comparable to immortal connecting realm experts. No one knows what method that person used to control those elixir weapons and relied on them to kill several immortal connecting realm experts. Before that, there was another immortal connecting realm cultivator in the Bai family who was killed by that person's weak water. Even his bones turned into thick water. Weak water? Isn't that the legendary water of the Nether River? Is that small world connected to the Nether River? Who knows? For immortal connecting realm experts, the Bai family lost too. How sad. Someone sighed and said, the Bai clan sure is unlucky to have messed with such a monster. Several of their strongholds were destroyed, the 7 heroes of the younger generation were all killed, and close to 100 airborne realm cultivators were killed. With such forces combined, they could form a force stronger than the top 10 sects and clans. This guy is really daring. For immortal connecting realm experts, really, that's not all. That's not all. The Shin family's 6th grade alchemist, Shin Yuqing, was also killed by that person. In the end, that guy chased after the Li family's sun physique and the desolate demon physique of the Tianyao mountain and almost crippled them. What? There's such a thing? The sun physique and the desolate demon physique are the lifeblood of the Li family and the Tianyao mountain. How dare he chase after them? That's right. He's simply a madman. This, the 9 great sects, the Shin family, the Bai family, the Taishan sacred ground, the Wantong sacred ground, the Li family, and the Tianyao mountain. This guy wants to offend all the major forces in the second heaven. Many people were shocked. Want to read books 1/K/ at the same time, another piece of news came out. A great beast had appeared in the small world. It was an ancient dragon. Dragon? Such an ancient creature has appeared? Isn't that a domineering monster in myths? It's said that it's born naturally and can only be born after hundreds of thousands of years. It can destroy everything when it's born, and it's comparable to a peak nirvana powerhouse. It's known as the source of destruction. It's rare to see such a monster in ancient times, let alone now. Why does it sound so mysterious? But in fact, it has appeared. Listening to this sound, the entire second heaven shook. For immortal reaching powerhouses were killed in one day, and then a legendary dragon appeared. For a moment, many people's nerves were affected. In the Bai family, in a hall, Bai Hongye roared, his killing intent soaring into the sky. He was an old man with wide eyes filled with hatred and anger. He summoned the powerhouses of his family and went to the last immortal mountain range. 2 immortal reaching realm experts had died just like that. Even for a top force like the Bai clan that had existed since the ancient times, this was an unbearable loss. The yuan-chi they had lost was something that they would not be able to recover even after several decades. Beast! Bai Hongye roared. At this moment, there was only killing intent, anger, and hatred in his eyes. He didn't know who was the one who started it. Taishan's sacred ground. Chase after them! Suppress them for me! His angry voice echoed in the sky. The death of an immortal reaching cultivator was a loss that even a sacred ground could not bear. At the same time, the same voice came from the all-enlightenment sacred ground. A powerhouse had appeared and rushed to the last immortal mountain range. Powerhouses from the Li family and Mount Tianyao also rushed over. These 2 clans didn't suffer any losses, but their king body cultivator was almost killed, so they naturally had to retaliate. For a moment, a dense crowd of cultivators rushed to the fallen immortal mountain range, causing many cultivators to feel a chill down their spines. I wonder if that guy is still in that small world. I don't know. It's said that he didn't come out. He didn't come out? That's impossible. I think we should leave. If he's still here, he's dead. Many people trembled. Rumble. The void rumbled. On this day, at least 100 peak Zephyr realm powerhouses rushed to the small world of the last immortal mountain range, frantically searching for Lin Tian's figure. They almost turned over the small world opened by Master Apothecary, but no one could find Lin Tian's figure. In the end, a group of people rushed out of the small world with monstrous killing intent. Find him! We must find him! Skin him! Refine his bones! Make him suffer a fate worse than death! Cold and vicious voices spread throughout the second heaven. Almost all of them came from the Shin family, Bai family, and the 2 sacred grounds. In an instant, the second heaven was in an uproar. In the small world opened by Master Apothecary, inside the waterfall, Lin Tian was still cultivating silently. This place can hide one's aura. Is it because I have the medicine encyclopedia that I can sense this place? Lin Tian muttered to himself. 2 hours ago, people from several major forces found this small world, which really surprised him. But soon, he found that even if someone passed by the waterfall at a close distance, they couldn't sense his existence and directly left with killing intent. Shaking his head, Lin Tian didn't think much about it. In short, it was very safe to stay here. He didn't need to worry about anything. Buzz! He silently recited the general outline of the medicine encyclopedia in his sea of consciousness, absorbing the black pill light in this space. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Lin Tian cultivated on the futon for 3 days without sleeping or resting. After opening his eyes on this day, he only felt that his essence, qi, and spirit had improved a lot, and his cultivation had also improved a lot. The most important thing was that he found that his alchemy had improved by leaps and bounds. He had reached the peak of the 4th grade alchemist, and would soon enter the 5th grade alchemist realm. Chapter 386. Clenching his fist slightly, Lin Tian could feel the majestic Dan Qi flowing in his body. In these 3 days he had come a long way on the Tao of alchemy. Greater than over equal to, V net, intersection is not equal to. He spread out his right hand, and with a thought, a green flame appeared with a sizzling sound. 3rd stage alchemy fire. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Alchemy fire was divided into 7 levels, from low to high. The colors of the flames were yellow, purple, cyan, green, blue, red, and black. The higher the level of the alchemy fire, the easier it was to refine Baodan, and the better the quality of the Baodan produced. At the same time, the alchemy fire had a strong attacking power. The higher the level of the alchemy fire, the more violent its attacking power would be. It was rumored that the 7th degree black pill fire could burn everything in the world, and it would not be extinguished until the target was completely burnt. Closing his eyes, Lin Tian circulated the 4 extremes scripture and adjusted his Jinyuan. After meditating in the Master Apothecary's cultivation area for 3 days, his cultivation had almost reached the peak of the 1st tier of Zephyr. Now, he was running the 4 extreme scriptures and felt that the spiritual ether in his body had become purer and denser. In short, he was much stronger. Buzz! A faint silver light lingered on the surface of his body until a day later, Lin Tiankai once again opened his eyes. He stood up and looked outside, feeling that it was time to leave. Lin Tian arrived in front of the profound cyan cauldron in the middle and put it away. Boom! It was also at this time that the ground shook. Many places began to shatter, and black cracks appeared in the void. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed. This space is about to disappear. As he muttered to himself, he soared into the air and quickly stepped out. Not long ago, when the Black Dragon was born, the small world created by the Master Apothecary was almost completely destroyed and was on the verge of shattering. Net greater than over equal to less than or equal to is not equal to. After dozens of breaths, Lin Tian had just stepped out of the small world when the space behind him collapsed. Shaking his head, Lin Tian didn't linger and walked away. Not bad. He narrowed his eyes. During this trip to this small world, his alchemy had improved considerably, and his cultivation had also increased slightly. Most importantly, he had obtained 2 7 apertures exquisite pills that could extend one's lifespan by 500 years. Such precious treasures were something that even great Tao tier elites would be envious of. Walking through the mountains and forests, Lin Tian did not go out for the time being. Instead, he walked casually. During this period of time, he continuously fought, advancing through the bloody slaughter, wishing to have some peace and quiet. Creak, creak! There were quite a few small animals in the old forest. Among them, there was the soft cry of a civet cat. When it saw Lin Tian, it was immediately startled and ran away in panic. Lin Tian smiled. Sure enough, ordinary small animals were still very afraid of strangers. He really missed the days at the fallen immortal peak. It's not good to be alone, Lin Tian muttered to himself. He plucked a stalk of grass from the ground and put it into his mouth. As he chewed, a faint fragrance wafted out. Not long after, he walked out of the last immortal mountain range, and he followed the path to enter another forest. Within the forest, birds and beasts gently chirped. Old leaves drifted down in a very natural manner. Lin Tian walked on foot like a wanderer. V times less than or equal to Z. On the path of cultivation, hard work was necessary, but it was not always good. Occasionally, one would still need to relax. In ancient times, the sages called this a tempering of the heart. Training one's heart was to train one's mental state. In the history of cultivation, the stronger one's cultivation was, the more they would pay attention to this. This was because if the training of one's mental state could not keep up with one's martial cultivation level, it would easily lead to the birth of a heart demon. On the other hand, if the training of one's mental state surpassed one's martial cultivation level, then one's future training would become very smooth. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes with a faint smile on his face. He was wholeheartedly trying to relax his heart. The sun is very good, the grass is very green, the flowers are very beautiful, the water is very pure. Lin Tian walked along a stream, very leisurely. In the second heaven, all the major forces were looking for Lin Tian. Several of them couldn't wait to tear Lin Tian apart. Most importantly, there was news that Lin Tian had obtained 2 Baodan pills that could extend one's life by 500 years. This undoubtedly shocked the entire second heaven. Many people's eyes turned red. Extending one's life by 500 years is a peerless treasure. Lin Tian, get out here! Do you want to hide again? Come out and face your death. I'll crush you with one hand. Voices sounded one after another. The ones who spoke were the younger generation of several major forces. There were people from the Shen family, people from the 9 great sects, and of course, people from the Bai family and the 2 holy lands. That Lin Tian is said to be able to fight with the desolate monster body. These ordinary disciples of the major forces really dare to be so arrogant. Someone shook his head. They are deliberately provoking Lin Tian, trying to lure him out. Guan less than or equal to, that's right. It is said that the 9 great sects, the Shen family, the Bai family, the Taishan Holy Land, and the Wantong Holy Land, have teamed up with many powerhouses of the Zephyr realm. Even the cultivators of the Tianyao Mountain and the Li family have joined in. They want to tear Lin Tian apart alive. Moreover, there are also older generation powerhouses who have entered to support them. Older generation powerhouses? Are they in the immortal realm? I don't know about that, but there are still powerhouses at the 9th level of the Zephyr realm. How many people are there in total? About 100 people. Hiss! Someone gasped. Even a king physique expert would find it difficult to withstand more than 100 Zephyr realm powerhouses, right? Unless they have reached the level of the Sun physique, it would be difficult for a king physique expert who has just entered the Zephyr realm to survive when encountering more than 100 Zephyr realm powerhouses at the same time. In various restaurants, many people were discussing. Even on some roads, many itinerant cultivators were also discussing this matter. Lin Tian, get the hell out here. I'll only use one hand to defeat you. I'll let you crush me with one foot. You don't dare to come out? You'll be a turtle forever. Coward, you're really a weak ant. Soon someone else spoke. Hearing these voices, many cultivators in the second heaven shook their heads. Although they knew that these people were deliberately provoking Lin Tian to appear, they still felt that it was a little too much. That Lin Tian, even a king physique expert, wouldn't dare to easily win against him, but these people dared to say such words. It's really... Lin Tian walked through some old forests and some roads, so he naturally heard those clamoring voices. However, he didn't care and appeared to be at ease. After crossing another small path, he entered a relatively lush old forest that was not smaller than the last immortal mountain range. Walking in the old forest, his steps were slow and casual. Roar! In the old forest, a monster beast roared and roared. Not long after, a level 8 monster beast appeared. It was about 30 feet tall and had a body as tough as a diamond. It pounced directly at Lin Tian. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept over, blowing the old trees as if they were about to shatter in the next moment. Don't block the way. Lin Tian's footsteps remained unchanged as he said indifferently. His eyes were calm, without any coldness or murderous intent, but it made the level 8 demonic beast tremble. It quickly stopped and began to tremble. Looking at the originally insignificant human in front of it, the level 8 monster beast suddenly felt a deep sense of fear, as if it was facing the god of death from hell. It didn't dare to move at all. Lin Tian walked past it and patted the level 8 monster beast. Good boy. His footsteps did not stop as he continued forward. The monster beast stared at Lin Tian as he walked away. When he disappeared from its sight, it swallowed its saliva fiercely and ran away dejectedly. Along the old forest, Lin Tian walked casually, but he was also collecting some medicinal materials to prepare to make a cauldron of baodan. Not much time passed, and at night, Lin Tian stopped under a large tree. I've almost gathered all the materials, he muttered to himself. He took out a black cauldron from the stone ring and put his right hand on it. Immediately, a green pill fire jumped out of the cauldron. He had collected a lot of materials to make a cauldron of origin sealing pills. He didn't care about the clamor of the outside world, but it didn't mean that he would always condone it. If there were too many flies, it would be very annoying. He would only be satisfied by killing all of them. Buzz! The green pill fire surged. Then, he put the materials into the cauldron. It could be seen that the materials were melting bit by bit. After about 2 hours, Lin Tian stopped and took out 10 baodan from the cauldron. The baodan had an extraordinary luster. Lin Tian sensed it slightly, and showed a satisfied expression. He had made origin-sealing pills before, but at that time, he was only a third-grade alchemist, and origin-sealing pills were inferior fourth-grade pills. Therefore, the origin-sealing pills back then were not perfect. Now that he had reached the peak of fourth-grade alchemist, the quality of the origin-sealing pills he made again was completely different from before. It could be said that the effect of one origin-sealing pill was equivalent to 5 origin-sealing pills in the past. Nodding slightly, Lin Tian put away the black cauldron, sat cross-legged on the ground, and closed his eyes. He didn't cultivate, but rested. Soon the night passed, and the sun appeared in the sky. Lin Tian stood up and walked out of the old forest. Lin Tian, are you afraid of death? Come out. If you dare to come out, I'll let you die with my hands and feet. Bind yourself and I'll let you have 100 moves. In the past few days, the clamor had been incessant. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes and entered an old city. The voices came from there. The old city was called Luwa City. It was said that standing in the city at night, one could see the moonlight flowing like a river, so it was named Luwa City. There were many cultivators coming and going on weekdays. Lin Tian, come out and die. Do you want to hide for the rest of your life? How embarrassing! I'll bind my hands and feet and lower my cultivation to fight you. Do you dare? You don't even dare to come out? What a piece of trash! The old city was bustling, and the voices came out again. Lin Tian stepped into the air and entered the sky above Luwa City. At a glance, he saw the people who were shouting. There were a few young men, about 27 or 28. Their strength was not weak, and they were at the first level of the Zephyr realm. Why are you shouting so loudly? Lin Tian andao. He walked in the air, step by step toward them. Lin Tian? That man really appeared? In Luwa City, the expressions of the cultivators who came and went changed. The few young men who were shouting looked in the direction of the voice, and their expressions changed. They no longer had the arrogance from before and fled into the distance. Didn't you want to bind your hands and feet and lower your cultivation to fight me? I'm here, why are you running? Lin Tian mocked. He followed behind the two of them unhurriedly, and soon arrived in front of a huge palace. Chapter 387. The building occupied an area of about 100 feet, which could be considered very spacious. Lin Tian walked to this place and directly swung his sword. No pop-up window, note, V-web, note with a loud bang, the door of the building was shattered, and he walked in. You really dare to come? A young man sneered. This young man was one of the people who had been clamoring outside. Now that he had escaped back here, he was no longer afraid. That was because the building was filled with people, and all of them were in the Zephyr realm. Why wouldn't any Tom, Dick, or Harry dare to come? Lin Tian's expression was calm. At this moment, he was surrounded by a group of people, but his expression did not change in the slightest. He was calm and composed. Cats and dogs? I wonder what it will be like after you die, one of them said coldly. This was a yellow-robed young man, an outstanding disciple of the Bai clan. I know that you are very arrogant, but I didn't expect you to be so arrogant that you have no sense of reason. After being provoked by words, you actually came here. Someone sneered. This was an outstanding expert of the Li clan, whose cultivation was at the second layer of the Zephyr realm. Lin Tian casually glanced over and said, Some people are just despicable. They clearly wanted me to come, but when I came, they said something like I didn't expect you to really come. Is this despicable attribute something your Li family is born with? He paused for a moment and continued. Speaking of which, isn't your Li clan's son Physique known as the #1 person in his generation? He fled after being chased by me, yet now you have to stand up for him. How sad. In this lifetime, it'll be difficult for him to reach the peak. This matter has nothing to do with my clan's holy son. You have committed all kinds of crimes and are naturally violent. I am here to kill you for justice, the expert from the Li clan said coldly. Is that so? It has nothing to do with me hunting down your clan's holy son? Lin Tian narrowed his eyes and said, Since that's the case, do you dare to swear an oath? If you're here because I'm chasing after the sun Physique, then your cultivation will forever be stagnant. Net less than or equal to. The Li clan's expert's face froze, and his face turned ashen. A cultivator's oath could not be messed up. Hypocrite, Lin Tian said disdainfully. However, whether or not you dare to swear is the same. You are destined to have no future, because you will die here. You! How arrogant! The person from the Li clan said coldly. Someone from the Taishan Holy Land stepped forward and said, He killed my master. Why waste time talking to this demon? Just kill him! This was Li Moyuan's last disciple. He was only 26 years old, but he had already reached the second layer of the Zephyr realm. His battle prowess was very strong. Just kill him! One of them spoke. This was an outstanding disciple of the Wantong Holy Land, Luo Suiying's disciple. He stared at Lin Tian, his eyes filled with killing intent. Kill! Crush to death! Chop them up and feed them to the dogs! Everyone spoke one after another, and their voices were icy cold. This was especially true for the members of the 9 great sects, the Shen family, and the Bai family. They hated Lin Tian to the core, and their killing intent was shockingly strong. Set up the formation! A voice was heard from the crowd. 9 old men stood out. All of them had cold looks on their faces and were at the peak of the Zephyr plane. Everyone began to move. For a moment, the sound of clanging rang out incessantly. Buzz! The light mist was hazy, covering all directions, forming a vast expanse. The building was originally very spacious. Now, more than 100 people were surrounding it. They stood in different positions and channeled their true essence. In an instant, the aura of the crowd was quickly merged together, emitting a wave of energy that was even more terrifying than that of an ordinary immortal ascension cultivator. It intertwined with a murderous radiance that was incomparably terrifying. Envy net envy. The immortal shocking array, a joint attack passed down by the ancient array masters. Killing you is as easy as slaughtering a dog. When more than 100 Zephyr plane powerhouses gathered together, the wave of energy was extremely shocking. Among them, Lin Tian's expression was very calm, and there was even a hint of sarcasm. Is this what you're relying on? Such a calm expression undoubtedly made everyone very unhappy. How dare you be so arrogant when you're about to die? Someone said coldly. Lin Tian was disdainful. He did not care about the terrifying wave of energy outside his body at all. Instead, he looked at the group of people with pity. We'll only suppress him for now. We still need to get a lot of things from him, including the 2 exquisite Bao Dan. One of the 9 old men said. These 9 people came from 5 great forces and were here to hold the line. After this, we'll make him suffer a fate worse than death. Suppress. Kneel down. More than 100 people moved at the same time, and all kinds of light pressed down on Lin Tian together. At this time, more than 100 people stared at Lin Tian with cold expressions, as if they were looking at a corpse. Among them, there were outstanding disciples of the 9 sects, members of the Shen family, and experts from the Bai family, Taishan sect, Wantong sect, Li family, and Mount Tianyao. All of them were in the airborne realm. Now, more than 100 Zephyr realm cultivators were guarding this place. Coupled with a joint attack formation, they were confident that they could suppress even a king physique in the Zephyr realm. This was because there were 9 older cultivators at the pinnacle of the Zephyr realm among them. Lin Tian tilted his head, his face full of disdain, and casually slashed out with his sword. Chu less than or equal to after the plane's sword collided with the light around it, it directly merged with it, and then all the light was shattered. Pft! 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 More than 100 people coughed up blood at the same time and were all sent flying. This is? The immortal shocking formation is broken? How is this possible? The 9 elders at the peak of the airborne realm were shocked. The immortal shocking formation was a joint attack formation passed down from ancient times. It was very powerful, gathering the power of more than 100 airborne realm powerhouses, and could even kill immortal reaching realm powerhouses. But now, such a big formation was broken by a sword, and all the people who set the formation were affected. This shocked the 9 people, and their faces were full of disbelief. At the same time, more than 100 people were shocked. How is this possible? This shouldn't be. Everyone couldn't figure it out. How could the immortal shocking formation be destroyed so easily? In the middle, Lin Tian's pace did not change, and his face did not change, just like at the beginning. Setting up a formation in front of me, you have a good idea, he said. His voice was calm, but there was a strong sense of mockery in it. He was a 5th stage array master. A joint attack formation like the immortal shocking formation was not worth mentioning to him at all. He could see where the center of the formation was at a glance, and then he could destroy the formation with a light flick of his finger. The fact that more than 100 people formed a joint attack formation to suppress him made him feel a little ridiculous. More than 100 people got up and wiped the blood from the corners of their mouths. They were shocked and angry. They set up a big formation to surround one person, but they suffered a great loss at the beginning. This made everyone's faces turn ugly. Don't be so smug. Even if you break this joint attack formation, what's the use? There are so many of us here, and there are 9 seniors at the peak of the airborne realm. Can you stop us? Yes, you killed a few immortal reaching realm elders, but unfortunately you relied on external forces. Here, if you fight against all of us with your own strength, you will only die in the end. That's right. Everyone stared at Lin Tian with cold eyes. The 9 elders at the peak of the airborne realm nodded. They all walked to the front and surrounded Lin Tian. All of them had indifferent expressions. These 9 people were all at the peak of the airborne realm. When they worked together, they did not care about Lin Tian at all. Death is your only ending. Learn to be smart in your next life. Keep a low profile. Don't provoke anyone. People who are too arrogant don't live long, a few people said. The 9 of them stepped forward and walked toward Lin Tian, not caring about Lin Tian at all. Facing the 9 people, Lin Tian's expression was very calm. I'll return all of these words to you. It's almost time to send you on your way, he said lightly. A light flashed, and a divine shadow rushed out from behind him. It was the Bai family's 1,000 illusory divine hands. The Bai family elder's face darkened, and he directly raised his hand and slapped forward. However, in the next moment, the elder's face changed drastically. He only felt that his body was empty, and he could not feel a trace of spiritual ether. It was as if he had become immortal. Almost at the same time, the others all realized that something was wrong with them. Where's my spiritual ether? Why isn't my spiritual ether moving? Damn it, what's going on? Everyone spoke one after another. Everyone stared at Lin Tian. Then, the people of the Bai family were moved, and they thought of the destruction of the Bai family's 3 strongholds. You used the same method as that time? When was that? That person's heart palpitated. How could it be? He didn't do anything just now. Damn it! Hearing the words of the Bai family, the others were instantly moved, and they also thought of the destruction of the Bai family's 3 strongholds. At that time, there were witnesses who said that Lin Tian used a special method to seal everyone's spiritual ether. Now, these people could not feel their spiritual ether. When they thought of the destruction of the strongholds, their faces suddenly changed. In the middle, Lin Tian did not move, and he had a smile on his face. Kill, he said calmly. Behind him, the divine shadow attacked, and dense palm prints pressed down. Puff! 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 In an instant, more than 10 cultivators were turned into blood mist. After entering this place, he secretly crushed 10 essence-sealing pills. This was refined after he became a peak 4th-grade alchemist. It could be said to be perfect. It could completely seal the spiritual ether of an expert at the peak of the Zephyr realm for about half an hour. Half an hour was enough for him to kill everyone here. Boom! The 1,000 illusion divine hands shook violently. Fists, palms, and claws attacked one by one. In an instant, everyone was in great trouble, and they screamed in pain. You're from the Green Flame Immortal Sect. I'll remember that. Has the sect been rebuilt? I'll destroy it again. You. Puff. You're from Qinghua Taoism. Puff. You're from the Shin family. Puff. I'm from the Bai family. There's nothing to say. When I reach the Immortal Ascension realm, I'll visit your Bai family. Puff. The blood mist spread. Lin Tian stood in the middle, not moving at all. Behind him, the blurry figure supported by the 1,000 illusion divine hands attacked. Each attack could kill an ordinary Zephyr realm cultivator. After all, these people's spiritual ether had been frozen, and they didn't have much resistance. Didn't you say that you wanted to bind yourself and lower your cultivation to fight with me? Now I've satisfied you. Come here. He stared at a young man. No, I'm just... This was terrifying. You want me to make the first move? Fine. No. Puff. Blood splattered in the air. A young man who had been shouting in the city had his head smashed and died tragically on the spot. Lin Tian still stood in place and looked around at the crowd. Li family, you're looking for trouble. You're courting death. Stop, you want to fight with Li. The young man of the Li family retreated in horror, but how could he escape? He was directly smashed into pieces by the 1,000 illusion divine shadow. Chapter 388. The bloody mist floated in the hall, and it was a shocking sight. Bang! In an instant, everyone in the building was terrified. Their vital essence was sealed, and no one could resist. Damn it! Run! Run! Quite a few people shouted loudly and rushed outside. Lin Tianling smiled. How could he give these people a chance to escape? He pulled the bowstring mercilessly. Puff, puff, puff. The few people who ran out were shot in the head and died on the spot. Ah! Screams and cries of horror echoed, and everyone was in chaos. Beast! An old man at the peak of the Zephyr realm shouted. This was an old cultivator from the Taishian sacred ground. He was extremely angry when he saw the outstanding disciples of the sacred ground being killed. Say that to the people of Mount Tianyao. Lin Tianyao. He raised his hand and pulled the bow, and an arrow pierced through the old man's glabella. Behind him, the 1,000 phantoms trembled and the sound of weapons rang out. Precious weapons appeared in many of the illusory hands. He tilted his head and stared at a few great demons. You're from Mount Tianyao. You're courting death. Puff! In the blink of an eye, the great demons were crushed into a bloody mist. You're from the Wantong sacred ground, Luo Suying's disciple? Good, I'll send you to accompany him to show your filial piety. No, stop, Puff! In the blink of an eye, the disciples of the Wantong's sacred ground were killed, and the building was dyed red with blood. Ah! Spare my life! Spare my life! I don't want to die yet! The crowd was terrified. They had arranged everything, but they did not expect to end up like this. With a bang, an old powerhouse smashed a hole in the building and fled in a sorry state, shouting for help. On the streets of Lua City, many people were terrified when they saw the old man escape. This isn't an old powerhouse of the Li family dealing with Lin Tian? He escaped? Everyone stared. At this moment, with a swoosh, a golden arrow flew out and shot the old man's head. The crowd cried out in shock and retreated. Ah! Screams echoed from the building and came out through the broken hole, causing many people on the street to be terrified. Everyone stared at the palace and held their breaths. After an unknown amount of time, the voices quieted down. The palace was split into pieces by a sword ray. A slender figure soared into the sky, stepping on the void as he left step by step. Is that Lin Tian? Let's go! In that palace, could it be? Everyone shuddered. Someone plucked up his courage and walked forward. When he saw the ground full of corpses, he was so scared that his face turned pale. All dead! Over 100 people! There were also a few experts at the peak of the Zephyr realm, but they were all killed in less than a quarter of an hour? He became stronger again? The crowd's hearts palpitated. On this day, when the news spread out, it undoubtedly shocked the second heaven again. The 9 great sects, the Shen family, the Bai family, the Li family, the Tianyao mountain, the Taishan sacred ground, and the Wantong's sacred ground. So many great forces gathered together. More than 100 Zephyr realm experts and 9 peak Zephyr realm experts were all killed in a quarter of an hour? He's comparable to the holy sons of several great forces. You're all alone, yet you're able to grow to this extent? This is really a terrifying man. Now I'm afraid there are not many people below the immortal realm who can stop Lin Tian, right? The Bai family is probably going to cry. Many people's hearts trembled. In the past, there were many rogue cultivators who had set their eyes on Lin Tian, wanting to steal his precious technique. But now, no one dared to have such thoughts. Lin Tian was a ruthless person who had killed the experts of the aristocratic families in the Holy Land. Who would dare to provoke him? Another storm swept through the second heaven. Many people were stunned when they heard the news. From now on, no one in the world doesn't know him. Someone muttered. Lin Tian left Lua City and walked alone on the ground, continuing to cultivate his heart. It's boring to be alone after all. He muttered to himself. Is identical to Sai? Yi. In this heaven, he only had one friend, Bai Chio. Now, he really missed her. I don't know how that guy is doing now. He should have reached the airborne realm and the Taiyin physique. He thought. Speaking of which, in this second heaven, except for the core members of the Bai family, he was probably the only one who knew that Bai Chio had the Taiyin physique. Thinking of Bai Chio, he was actually very grateful. Although Bai Chio had brought him a lot of trouble, that girl's heart was pure and did not hide anything from him. On the contrary, he hid everything from her and had never been honest with her. After a pause, he shook his head fiercely. Forget it. Muttering to himself, he continued to walk forward. Now, his relationship with the Bai family was completely stiff, and there was no room for reconciliation. He didn't know if he could see this good friend again. In the next few days, he walked through old forests and saw pieces of land. He felt that his sea of consciousness was brighter. 1. On the 5th day, he sat cross-legged on a bluestone and operated the 4 extremes scripture, and the true yuan in his body moved. In the airborne realm, one would temper the true yuan and make it transition to divine power. An old drunkard had already told him about this, and he naturally remembered it in his heart. At this time, he was quietly tempering his true yuan. The so-called tempering of true yuan was, in fact, not much different from tempering one's divine sense. Of course, the difficulty was higher. After all, the true yuan covered the whole body, and it had to be repeatedly tempered until all of it transitioned to divine power. This process was a bit complicated. Lin Tian sat cross-legged on the bluestone, calmed his mind, and operated the four extremes scripture, tempering his true yuan over and over again. At this time, there was a stream in front of him. The water was splashing, and there was a kind of natural charm intertwined around him. In the blink of an eye, a day passed. A day later, Lin Tian stood up, only to feel that his essence, qi, and spirit were stronger. Is identical to. He nodded in satisfaction and continued to walk along the stream. In the second heaven, although a few days had passed, many people were still talking about Lin Tian's incident. Several major forces gathered more than 100 powerhouses and planned to kill an early-stage airborne realm cultivator. But in the end, they were all killed, which made the major forces lose face. What a monster! Many people's hearts trembled. At the same time, almost all the major forces roared. Especially the Bai family. Bai Hongye almost vomited blood, and his eyes were about to crack. Beast! In the past few days, roars came out of the Bai family every day. Taixian's sacred land and Wantong's sacred land were naturally not quiet, and from time to time, terrifying killing intent would spread out. Soon, another 5 days passed. On this day, a loud roar resounded through the sky, shattering pieces of the void. In the second heaven, above the sky, a black dragon hovered, and terrifying fluctuations poured down, making everyone's heart tremble. That is? The rumors not long ago, is it true? Dragon? Many people swallowed their saliva. Roar! The black dragon roared as it circled around in the sky. Sometimes it was to the south, sometimes it was to the north. Black light filled the sky, causing everyone to be alarmed. Bai family, Taixian's sacred land, Tianyao Mountain, Li family, and Wantong's sacred land. On this day, the old antiques of several major forces opened their eyes one after another and looked at the sky of the second heaven. Nether demonic dragon? It's a legendary monster, comparable to the peak of Nirvana realm, and one step away from entering the chaotic realm. Such a monster appeared in this world? What's going on? Suppress all of its aura. On this day, the nether demon dragon soared into the sky. With a flap of its wings, it covered a distance of 1,000 miles. Soon, it appeared above the Li family. Everyone in the Li family was terrified, and even the Li family old ancestor was no exception. His palms were full of sweat. The nether demonic dragon was a legendary existence. Although the Li family could look down on this heaven, they were nothing in front of the nether demonic dragon. This demonic dragon could destroy the entire Li family with a casual blow, and no one would be able to survive. After a while, the nether demonic dragon spread its wings and flew away, appearing above Taixian's sacred land. After a few breaths of time, the nether demonic dragon flew away again. Heavens, where did this monster come from? What is it going to do? On this day, the second heaven was shrouded in fear. The aura of the nether demonic dragon was too terrifying, as if it was the source of destruction. In an old forest, Lin Tian naturally saw the nether demonic dragon. What is it looking for? 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes. He had personally experienced the terror of this black dragon. It was overbearing, and even Wu Jin was weak in front of it. He stood on top of an old tree and watched the black dragon hovering in the sky as if it was looking for something. Roar! The black dragon roared, and a violent wind swept across the heaven and earth, shattering the sky of the second heaven. Streaks of black lightning interweaved in the clouds, and it was terrifying. It went to the north. It left the north and went to the south. It disappeared again and went to the west. On this day, everyone in the second heaven was terrified, but everyone was looking up at the sky. Everyone found that the black dragon seemed to be looking for something. In the next day, a black dragon hovered in the sky of the second heaven, and its terrifying pressure continued to press down. In the morning, another roar sounded, and it directly shattered the sky. The black dragon soared into the sky and appeared in an ordinary old forest at the end of the north. It opened its mouth, and a mass of black light brewed in its mouth and shot out with a bang. The void shattered inch by inch. Then, a huge gap appeared in the old forest in front of it, and a dim light shot out. The nether demonic dragon roared, and it seemed to be a little excited. It rushed in and disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, that huge gap had been preserved, supporting the heavens and the earth. Vaguely, the sound of a Tao weapon could be heard from it. What's that? Did that black dragon open the entrance to hell? Many people's hearts trembled. In the northern region, Taixian's sacred land and Wantong's sacred land were the closest to this place. An old antique saw the dark gap from afar, and his expression changed, revealing a shocked expression. What's that? The forbidden area, the sword tomb. It forcibly opened the sword tomb? What does it want to do? The old antiques of the two sacred lands were shocked. Soon, the news about the sword tomb spread out, causing a great commotion in the second heaven. The secret of eternal life is inside? Everyone was shocked. Chapter 389. Eternal life. Everyone who sets foot on the path of cultivation wants to reach the sacred domain. However, from ancient times until now, this word has stopped everyone. Even if you are an unparalleled genius, you can only stop at the boundary of eternal life. Even if you exhaust all your strength, it's still difficult to step into it. Full text. Now that Black Dragon has broken a space, it is rumored that the secret of eternal life is contained in it, which immediately affected everyone's nerves. Sword tomb? Eternal life? Does it really contain the secret of eternal life? In the second heaven, everyone was shocked. In the blink of an eye, surprise, excitement filled the air of the entire second heaven. Almost at the same time, in a very distant place, Lin Tian stood on the top of an old tree. His face changed drastically. Where is that? The space opened by Black Dragon is located in the northern region, far away from his current location. He couldn't see the situation there at this time, nor could he feel the fluctuations there. However, at this time, the divine sword at the bottom of his divine sense moved. Vaguely, 7 colored lights surrounded the divine sword. The divine sword trembled, emitting a soft hum, and pointed directly at that place. It seemed to be urging him to go there. Lin Tian's eyes flickered as he looked at the northern region. After a few breaths, he soared into the sky and flew towards the northern region. In the deepest part of the northern region, the space opened by Black Dragon rushed to the ground. From time to time, dragon roars could be heard from it. In the second heaven, everyone was boiling. Many people were rushing to that place. Gradually, more and more news began to spread. That sword tomb has existed since ancient times. It is said to be a terrifying life-forbidden zone. Many powerhouses have died there. It contains terrifying power. It is said that there is a weapon that can transform into a monster. What about the secret of eternal life? What's going on? It's too long ago, so it's hard to say clearly. However, there are records in the ancient books that there is something related to eternal life. There is indeed such a thing. Voices were heard among the cultivators. Lin Tian was heading towards the northern region. Naturally, he heard these voices, and his eyes couldn't help but narrow. Sword tomb, forbidden zone, secret of eternal life. He whispered to himself. His speed wasn't slow. As he flew through the air, he covered a distance of 300 meters in an instant. On this day, people from various great powers were moved. Even some experts of the older generation moved out. All of them headed towards the sword tomb, wanting to obtain the so-called secret related to eternal life. As for the Taixian sacred ground and the Wantong sacred ground, which were the closest to the sword tomb, naturally, people had already reached the periphery of the sword tomb. However, for the time being, no one dared to enter. After all, the Black Dragon had just entered not long ago, and these people did not dare to get into trouble so quickly. At the very least, he had to wait until the situation inside had stabilized. In next to no time, the area 50 kilometers around the sword tomb was filled with people. Many cultivators had gathered here, and they were only waiting for someone to take the lead before directly charging in to seek eternal life. According to legend, the sword tomb opens once every 10 years. Every time, countless experts enter, but in the end, most of them are buried inside. According to the ancient records, the last time the sword tomb opened was 8 years ago. Who would have thought that this time, the sword tomb would be forcefully opened by the black dragon with brute force, and such a door would appear? Rumor has it that several people with the king body stepped into it at their peak state, but in the end, they never came out again. Back then, the sword tomb was known as the Tomb of Experts. Voices spread out one after another. Lin Tianyi was rushing towards the depths of the north. Naturally, he heard these voices, and the light in his eyes became even stronger. He muttered the word eternal life in his heart, and his speed increased as he flashed towards the north. Time passed in the blink of an eye. 2 days passed. On this day, the aura in the sword tomb stabilized, and the group of people guarding outside immediately rushed in. For eternal life! Someone roared. From ancient times until now, the history of cultivation had passed for millions of years, but no one had been able to step into eternal life. Now, that word had become a belief and the dream of all cultivators. That word was the most powerful source of motivation for cultivators. Boom! 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 The densely packed cultivators rushed in, and their vital essence swept out in all directions. It was vast and terrifying. The 10 great sects, the 3 great alchemy families, the Bai family, the Li family, Taishian sect, Wantong sect, and Mount Heavenly Monster all sent powerhouses there. Soon, another 2 days passed. On this day, Lin Tian came from the east and finally arrived outside the sword tomb. As soon as he appeared outside the sword tomb, the divine sword in his sea of consciousness buzzed, vibrating and emitting strands of multicolored light. There's something I need in there, he muttered to himself. The divine sword in his sea of consciousness had a mysterious origin. Although it was not under his control, every time the divine sword vibrated, it was because it had sensed something extraordinary, such as the ball of divine light in the demon burial valley and the divining divine skill on the fallen immortal peak. This place was no exception. It contained a heavenly treasure. Lin Tian soared into the sky, turned into a bolt of lightning, and shot into the sword tomb in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! A light breeze blew past, and the air in the sword tomb seemed a little cold. Lin Tian looked around. The sword tomb seemed a little dim, similar to the demon burial valley in the first level of heaven. At this moment, many cultivators had gathered in the sword tomb, and many of them were rushing towards the depths of the sword tomb. Lin Tian did not pay too much attention to it. He stepped on the reddish-yellow ground with steady steps, scanning his surroundings as he walked forward. Lin Tian? That madman is here too! Get out of the way, don't get involved with him. Many people saw Lin Tian, and immediately made way for him. In the eyes of many cultivators, he was a natural maleficent star. When he went crazy, he even dared to kill the elders of the sacred grounds. Lin Tian did not care and walked forward by himself. There were many tall mountains in the sword tomb. There were trees on the mountains, but they were all withered and looked very barren. Lin Tian walked on the reddish-yellow ground and walked all the way to the depths of the sword tomb. Soon, he had walked more than 1,000 feet. It was also at this moment that he stopped and saw a familiar pair of siblings. The brother and sister were both dressed in purple. The man was heroic and dignified, while the woman was ethereal and beautiful. They were the Bai siblings, Bai Ziki and Bai Chio. When the sword tomb opened, all the major forces sent experts to it, and the Bai siblings also entered. At this time, the two of them naturally saw Lin Tian. Lin! Bai Chio was a little surprised. She took a step forward and stopped again, wanting to say something. Recently, Lin Tian had met too many people from the Bai family. Even if she missed Lin Tian very much, she did not know how to speak at this time. Bai Ziki stared at Lin Tian with cold eyes. Purple lightning interweaved on the surface of his body, and the majesty of the thunder god's physique was fully displayed. Lin Tian looked at Bai Chio, paused, and took the initiative to speak. He smiled and said, "You've reached the airborne realm." "Yes, yes." Baichio did not know what to say and could not help but lower her head. Boom! Thunder rumbled in the sky, and a bolt of purple lightning was contained in the thunderclouds. Like a thunder dragon, it struck towards Lin Tian. Baichio was shocked and looked up at her brother. "Brother, what are you doing?" Lin Tian could feel how terrifying the lightning above his head was. The yin and yang liang flashed and crossed to the side. The lightning struck the ground and exploded with a bang, shaking a huge deep pit. Such a movement immediately attracted the attention of everyone around. In an instant, everyone nearby looked in this direction. "That's the Thunder God's physique of the Bai family fighting with Lin Tian? The atmosphere is not good. Nonsense, that madman killed so many people from the Bai family. It would be strange if these two people met. Is this a battle? It's obvious. I wonder who will win and who will lose." Many people stared straight ahead. If it were in the past, these people would have thought that Lin Tian would be defeated. After all, Bai Ziki had the Thunder God's physique, and his attack power was tyrannical. With one punch, he could draw a sea of lightning. He was definitely a supreme figure of the younger generation. However, Lin Tian had caused too many storms recently. He killed the 7 heroes of the Bai family, destroyed the 9 sects, killed 4 immortal masters, hunted down the Sun physique and the Desolate Demon physique, and finally killed more than 100 airborne realm cultivators in 15 minutes. His name was known all over the world. Now, these people really did not know who was stronger and who was weaker. Boom! The thunderclouds rumbled, and purple lightning intertwined in the clouds. It was terrifying and boundless. Bai Ziki stared at Lin Tian. His eyes were cold, and his whole body was surrounded by purple light, as if the thunder god had descended to the world. Lin Tian frowned. With a thought, a powerful aura seeped out of his body, and the power of fire covered his entire body. Moreover, there were also strands of lightning crisscrossing on the surface of his body, crackling loudly. He knew very well that he could not avoid a battle with Bai Ziki. For a moment, the two powerful auras collided, shaking the void and cracking the ground inch by inch. So powerful! These two people, their auras. How do they look like people in the airborne realm? It's too scary! Many people's hearts palpitated. The violent auras collided. The two of them were 50 feet apart. In the middle, electric arcs intertwined and crackled. Hurricanes spread out with the two of them as the center, and many people were shocked and stepped back. "Brother, Lin Tian, don't do anything rash!" Baichio shouted. One was his brother, and the other was his best friend. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, Baichio was a little anxious. Bai Ziki's eyes were cold, and he took a step forward. It was just a step, but he leaped dozens of feet away. A sea of lightning followed behind him, crushing the vast space. Lin Tian's eyes were calm, and he also moved. The light of fire and thunder rushed into the sky, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Bai Ziki. Dong! The two fists collided, and the surrounding space suddenly shattered. Silver spatial turbulence intertwined, and it was as if the Milky Way in the sky had collapsed, causing everyone's heart to palpitate. A thunder sword rushed out from behind Bai Ziki, and with a sonorous sound, it slashed down. Hum! A treasure bell appeared behind Lin Tian, and it was a kind of divine elephant, and it went to meet Bai Ziki's thunder sword. The two of them collided, and with a boom, terrifying hurricanes rolled out. The two of them looked like torches, and at the same time, they shook their iron fists and retreated. However, it was only for a moment, and the two of them charged at each other again. Boom! Thousands of phantoms rushed out from behind Bai Ziki, and endless giant palm prints pressed down, turning the sky and earth upside down, destroying everything. Lin Tian frowned. Bai Ziki used the same technique, but it was more than 1,000 times stronger than the 7 heroes of the Bai family. He formed a seal with both hands, and the 4 symbols Tao diagram formed, and faced forward. Chapter 390. The four symbols Tao diagram and the thousand illusions divine hand collided, making a sizzling sound. The void shook violently. Read! Boom! The storm swept in all directions. The two retreated, then rushed forward again. This time, there were no martial arts techniques or divine powers, only a pair of iron fists that kept colliding. Bang! 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 The earth trembled, and twisted cracks spread in all directions. Every time Baiziki punched down, there would be a burst of lightning, and the power was terrifying. Very strong! Lin Tian was shocked. However, he was no longer the spiritual sense cultivator he used to be. Baiziki was very strong, but he was not weak either. He waved his iron fists, and his physique, which had been tempered by the heavenly tribulation, was as strong as a dragon. Dong! With just one punch, the space in front of him directly cracked. Baiziki's eyes were cold and emotionless. The lightning on his body became stronger, as if the god of thunder had been reborn. Bang! 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 The two kept punching, and in the end, they retreated again. Stop fighting! Bai Qiu shouted. Unfortunately, whether it was Lin Tian or Baiziki, it was impossible for them to stop at this moment. Baiziki's body was intertwined with lightning, and Lin Tian's body was surrounded by fire and lightning. Their aura was shockingly strong. The two looked at each other, and as time passed, the aura outside their bodies became stronger and stronger. After 3 breaths of time, true essence raged as the two collided once more. Baiziki waved his hand. This time around, it wasn't a simple physical attack. A gigantic palm imprint manifested, blotting out the sky as it pressed down on Lin Tian. The Bai family's supreme divine palm. Boom! The Bai family's secret skill was activated by the Thunder God's constitution. Its power was released, and the palm shattered the void. Lin Tian frowned and quickly retreated. He used the divining divine skill, and the barren heaven world appeared, pressing toward the supreme divine palm. With the dong sound, the earth trembled, and cracks appeared one after another. Baiziki's expression did not change. Once again, he executed the supreme god palm. This palm strike was even stronger than before. Lin Tian frowned and took a step back, still using the barren heaven world to meet the attack. The radiance in the sky surged and scattered in all directions. Baiziki's real body suddenly became illusory. Then, in just a breath's time, the sky was suddenly filled with his figures. Every one of them seemed to be the real body, causing Lin Tian's expression to change. It was difficult to recognize. The next moment, he felt a cold sensation behind him. He had no time to think. A high-grade true treasure sword appeared in his hand, and he used it to block behind him. Crack! With a crisp sound, the upper-grade true treasure in his hand shattered. A thunderous force streaked across and quickly attacked. Lin Tian leaned to the side, lowered his head, and swung his left fist behind him. With a bang, it collided with a thunder sword. Baiziki's real body appeared. He held the thunder sword and stared coldly at Lin Tian. Boom! The sky shook violently, and a bolt of purple lightning fell, drowning Lin Tian in it. The light covered everything. All around, the crowd was shocked. This? He was hit by the Thunder King's force of the Thunder God Constitution. Even if he doesn't die, his skin will be peeled off. At this moment, an iron fist rushed out from the thunder and smashed hard on Baiziki's face. That Kuangren, can still fight back under the Thunder God's force of the Thunder God Constitution? Someone glared at him. Baiziki took the punch. The corners of his eyes became a little bruised, and he retreated a few feet. At the same time, the light of the Thunder God disappeared, revealing Lin Tian, who was in a sorry state. His clothes were a little tattered, and his hair was almost burnt. That Kuangren seems to have been roasted. The Thunder God Constitution's eye socket is black. Many people looked at each other. Baiziki and Lin Tian stared at each other, clenching their fists. Baiziki's black hair danced in the wind, and the thunder around him resounded through the sky, emitting an even more violent aura. With a buzz, the divine roar palace rushed out from behind Bai Ziki, and the mighty light of thunder flashed, suppressing Lin Tian. With a crack, the void distorted on the spot. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes, stretched out the yin-yang roar, and rushed directly. He ignored the obstruction of the divine roar palace, rushed directly into it, and punched at Bai Ziki. Such a violent scene undoubtedly made everyone's expression change. He rushed directly into the divine roar palace? He's unhindered? Heavens, what's going on? Everyone was surprised. Bai Ziki's eyes narrowed slightly, and when Lin Tian's fist pressed down, he stepped back and dodged the punch. He had already used the divine roar palace on Lin Tian, so he was not surprised that Lin Tian could block the divine roar palace, and he was prepared from the beginning. Boom! The thunder in the sky did not stop, and a total of 99 lightning bolts pressed down. Lin Tian's expression changed. Each of the 99 lightning bolts contained terrifying power, almost enough to kill a powerful existence at the peak of the Zephyr Plane. He stepped back lightly, his hands forming a seal, and a blazing sun rushed out from behind him, protecting him. Sun Ocean! He can use it in the barren heaven realm, the divine roar palace, and now even the Sun Ocean. How did he do it? Everyone was shocked. Dozens of lightning bolts collided with the Sun Ocean, exploding together with a bang, and a large pit appeared on the ground. Lin Tian stood in the center, his clothes fluttering in the wind, and he was not damaged at all. Bai Ziki stared at Lin Tian, his eyes even colder. Boom! In the sky, the sound of thunder exploded, and a purple divine dragon descended. Bai Ziki rushed out, holding up a sky full of thunderclouds behind him, and electric arcs crackled. Lin Tian's eyes focused, and in his sea of consciousness, the yin-yang twin lotus swayed together. A vision in the sea of consciousness? His heart skipped a beat. He used the divining divine skill, and at the same time, activated the barren heaven realm, the divine roar palace, and the Sun Ocean to meet the purple divine dragon descending from the sky. Then, his sea of consciousness shook slightly, supporting the yin-yang lotus sea, and black and white light intertwined in all directions. Boom! Boom! The two violent auras clashed together, shaking the hearts of many. The two rushed together, and fists, legs, swords, and visions in the sea of consciousness kept colliding with each other. With a bang, Lin Tian's fist landed on Bai Ziki's chest, and Bai Ziki staggered and almost fell to the ground. However, as one of the 12 regal bodies, Bai Ziki would not be at a disadvantage. As he retreated, a bolt of lightning fell, drowning Lin Tian in it again, and forced him back dozens of feet. Boom! The sky trembled as thunder rumbled incessantly. Bolts of lightning struck down incessantly, completely trapping Lin Tian within. What a terrifying scene! It's as if a heavenly tribulation is striking. Thunder God body! A sea of lightning with a punch, as expected of the name. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page, not a false rumor. Many people were shocked. Lin Tian stepped on the yin-yang lotus, and while dodging the lightning, he activated the yin-yang twin lotus, which turned into swords and slashed in all directions. These lotus swords were intertwined with black and white light, which was the manifestation of yin and yang qi. It was extremely shocking and powerful. Clang! The dense lightning was swept away, and the swords cut through the sky, pressing toward Bai Ziki. Bai Ziki's face was cold. The vision in his sea of consciousness was supported, and immortal lightning rushed out, shattering the lotus swords. Lin Tian's eyes were indifferent, and he stepped forward. He waved his right fist and pressed down. The space shook as if a sacred drum was beaten. What a terrifying physical body! This madman's physical body is too abnormal. Could it be the barbarian king body? Many people were shocked. Lin Tian pressed toward Bai Ziki, and lightning intertwined on his fist. That was the light of the heavenly tribulation, and it directly crushed everything. Bai Ziki's eyes were cold. Lightning surrounded him, and he was like a thunder god, walking between heaven and earth. Endless lightning surrounded his body and condensed at the tip of his fist. He waved his fist, and it was as if the immortal thunder god had struck out with killing power. Boom! The two fists collided, and the void directly collapsed. This was an extremely powerful battle. With a bang, both of them were sent flying at the same time, coughing up blood. Brother! Baichio stepped forward and grabbed Baiziki's arm. Don't fight with him, okay? Although she said that, her voice was weak. After all, Lin Tian had killed too many people in the Bai family. Although those who were killed were not of the same bloodline as the siblings and were not direct blood relatives, they were still members of the Bai family. Baiziki pushed Baichio away. His eyes were still as cold as ever, like a god of thunder surveying the world. With every step he took, the heavens would rumble and there would be bolts of lightning crashing down on his path, as though they were opening up a path for him. Such a powerful aura made the hearts of all the onlookers tremble. This was the thunder god body. It was so powerful that it could attract the divine lightning of heaven and earth. At the same time, many people also stared at Lin Tian, their eyes flashing. The thunder god body could attract thousands of lightning to fight. It was very terrifying, but Lin Tian had completely blocked this divine power. He could fight with him, and not be at a disadvantage. This shocked everyone. Being able to kill the cultivators of the various holy lands and aristocratic families did not rely on luck alone. Boom! Lin Tian's eyes narrowed. The yin-yang twin lotus protected his body, and a powerful aura shot into the sky. Seeing this, Baichio panicked. Lin Tian, don't fight with my brother! Lin Tian had become too strong. Even with her Lunar King physique, her heart trembled and she was shocked by his battle prowess. However, at this time, she had too much time to be surprised. Lin Tian was her only and best friend, and Baiziki was her brother. Both of them were very important to her. Now that the two of them were fighting, she was afraid that someone would be injured or even killed. Lin Tian's footsteps paused and stopped. However, it was only for a moment. He moved again, exuding an even more powerful aura. His blood she shot into the sky. The battle with Baiziki was unavoidable. Boom! Boom! The two domineering auras collided. Two afterimages appeared, and the two fists collided again. Boom! 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 At this moment, the two figures were a little blurry. Because they were extremely fast, they exchanged blows in the air again and again. They fought to the east and to the west, shattering the ground. They're coming this way! Oh my God! Retreat! The crowd's expression changed. Seeing Lin Tian and Baiziki's battle moving towards them, they immediately retreated. The battle between these two ruthless people was truly a bit frightening. These ordinary cultivators felt that a casual sputtering of light from the battle between the two could tear them apart. End of chapter. Chapter 391. The crowd dispersed. At this moment, the battle between Lin Tian and Baiziki had reached its climax. Hiss. Boom! Violent true essence swept through the surrounding space, and the ground collapsed inch by inch. Baiziki withdrew the divine rumble palace and supported the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness. It was still terrifying and wasn't inferior to the divine rumble palace. This was a sky dyed with thunder. Bolts of lightning surrounded the surroundings and crazily struck at Lin Tian. With a thump, it sounded like a divine drum. The ear-piercing sound shocked many people and they subconsciously covered their ears. Buzz! Lin Tian supported the yin-yang lotus sea and used the heavens divination divine technique to simulate the place where Heavenly Lord Daoren comprehended the Tao. Immediately, a stone platform and a stone wall were supported and pressed toward Baiziki. This was a top-notch collision that could be called a battle between supreme overlords of the same generation. It attracted countless people to watch. Lin Tian really blocked the Bai family's thunder god physique and didn't fall behind at all. That guy can really be called a supreme in the same generation. Without the sun, he's almost invincible in the same generation. Everyone was shocked. Alone and without any backup or support, he had actually reached such a level and was able to contend with the chosen of the ancient aristocratic families. From a certain perspective, such a person was even stronger than the chosen of the various holy lands and aristocratic families. Baiziki's body was surrounded by lightning. With one step, thousands of lightning bolts moved. Buzz! The Bai family's divine ability appeared and condensed into a divine shadow. It seemed to be the next level of the 1,000 illusory divine hands. It was shockingly tall. When the divine figure stepped out, a loud boom rang out, causing the entire ground to shake. Then, the divine shadow swung its fist and smashed toward Lin Tian. Lin Tian raised his hands to block, but he was directly sent flying. He felt his arms go numb and his blood churn. His expression didn't change. The yin-yang puppet flashed, and a silver iron fist shook the sky and pressed down on the divine shadow. With a swoosh, the powerful divine shadow was directly shattered. Lin Tianyi stepped forward, leaving behind afterimages. He used the yin-yang twin lotus to meet Baiziki's thunderbolts. His right hand punched out again. The thunderbolts outside Baiziki's body were completely annihilated. In the end, he was struck by Lin Tianyi's fist, and was forced to retreat several feet away. The two of them were separated by a distance of 60 feet. Both of them had suffered quite a few injuries at this time, but their expressions did not change. Chapter 9. You can see CEO. Brother, stop fighting, Bai Qiu said. She then looked at Lin Tian and begged. Lin Tian, please don't fight with my brother, okay? Baiziki stared at Lin Tian, his eyes turning colder. Lin Tian's expression didn't change, but his eyes flickered. So. The sound of air breaking rang out. The two of them disappeared like ghosts, and in the next moment, they collided again. Baiziki moved while stepping on the divine void puppet, propping up the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness as he executed the numerous divine abilities and secret arts from the Bai clan's divine scripture, causing the ground to collapse and space to shatter. It was as if the god of thunder had really descended, and boundless lightning would appear with every raise of his hand. Boom! The sky was pitch black. Bolts of purple lightning pressed down as if a heavenly tribulation was striking down. Lin Tian was expressionless. He propped up the yin-yang lotus sea, and the black and white lotus petals fluttered, surrounded by divine qi. Clang! The lotus petals condensed into a sword, and the sound of the sword was real. Every sword could crush a large area of lightning. He stepped on the yin-yang puppet and moved. His right hand condensed a 4 symbols Tao diagram and pushed it toward Baiziki. Hum! The 4 symbols Tao diagram trembled. Everything in its path disappeared. This was a top-notch sealing technique. It could seal people, gods, ghosts, immortals, and even seal oneself. Baiziki retreated. He formed a seal with both hands and condensed the supreme divine path sword of the Bai family. He slashed across the sky and directly pressed down. Boom! The supreme divine path sword collided with the 4 symbols Tao diagram. There was a sizzling sound from each other, and in the end, they both collapsed. The two rushed past each other and punched at the same time, landing on each other's cheeks. Lin Tian spat out a mouthful of blood and felt a pain at the corner of his mouth. The yin-yang puppet flashed and instantly appeared in front of Baiziki. He held Baiziki's head with both hands and used his right knee to hit Baiziki's chin. Bang! A crisp sound came out, and Baiziki was directly sent flying. However, as he was flying, Baiziki turned his head and grabbed Lin Tian's left foot and slammed it into the ground. WWWWWWWW. There was another bang, and the ground was directly smashed into a huge deep pit. Lin Tian felt that his bones were about to fall apart, and the true ether in his body was less than 40%. He climbed up from the pit and endured the pain. He didn't even care about the blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. He directly waved his iron fist and punched at Baiziki's cheek. Baiziki had the thunder god physique, so he naturally wouldn't fall so easily. He also punched out. Bang! Bang! The two fists once again landed on each other at the same time. Their eyes were even more violent. Two powerful true ether rushed out, and martial arts techniques and abhijna appeared one after another. Boom! The ground kept shattering, and the void kept twisting. The two fists collided from time to time, creating waves of white air vibrations. In the blink of an eye, the two had already fought for a full 2 hours. During the 2 hours, Baichio had spoken several times, begging the two to stop, but the two wouldn't listen to her. On the contrary, the battle became even more violent, and both of them fought with real fire. Many onlookers were scared and retreated again and again. Bastard! Bai Ziki cursed Luanwu. This was the first time he spoke, and his face was full of coldness. During this period, Baichio didn't know how many tears she had shed. On one hand, she was worried about Lin Tian's safety. On the other hand, she was sad that Lin Tian had killed so many people from the Bai family. She was much more haggard. The tears she had shed in 2 months were 10 times more than the tears she had shed in the past 10 years combined. Regarding this, Bai Ziki naturally blamed Lin Tian. Every time he saw his sister cry, he wanted to grab Lin Tian and cut him into pieces. Boom! Violent thunder roared, as if the thunder god was angry. Bolts of purple lightning flashed across the sky, and the scene was terrifying. A divine shadow appeared behind him again. Its body was covered in purple lightning armor, as if it was the primordial spirit of the thunder god. Lin Tian retreated. His hands moved, and a blood-red crack appeared. The blood-red crack trembled. Vaguely, the screams of ghosts could be heard from it. I've been wanting to beat you up for a long time. Today is just the right day. Lin Tian Andao. The blood-red crack twisted, strange and terrifying. He held it up and faced it head-on. The two collided with each other. A terrifying aura spread, and the ground collapsed inch by inch. Bai Ziki let out a battle cry, and the figure behind him raised his hand and suddenly pulled out a thunder sword, which let out a hum. Brother, what are you doing? Stop it! Baichio's expression changed. She knew very well what kind of divine technique her brother was using. It was one of the most powerful secret techniques in the Divine Sutra that was activated by the Thunder God's origin. At this moment, the divine shadow pulled out the sword. Ordinary immortal experts couldn't block it. Lin Tian, retreat! Baichio said anxiously. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed. He naturally felt the terror of this sword, and it made a chill run down his spine. However, he wasn't afraid. Hum! A huge ghost claw reached out from the blood-red crack that he held up. As soon as it appeared, it shook the surroundings. In an instant, an extremely terrifying wave spread out. What's that? Some people's hearts palpitated. The ghost's claw was ferocious, as if it had reached out from the real hell. It was terrifying. Baichio was also shocked. He wanted to rush over and pull Lin Tian away, but at this moment, he suddenly stopped. At this moment, Bai Ziki and Lin Tian had completely collided. Boom! A terrifying sword and a terrifying ghost claw. The two collided, and a large piece of the ground was shattered every time. The gravel rushed up in the air, and cracks appeared. How does this look like a battle at the Zephyr level? These two are simply freaks. Ordinary immortal experts probably can't reach this level, right? Many people were shocked. It was an astonishing battle. After an unknown amount of time, the divine shadow behind Bai Ziki disappeared, and the blood-red crack that Lin Tian created also collapsed into nothingness. The anomaly in his sea of consciousness had also been put away long ago. Looking at each other, the two of them were panting heavily, and they both looked very miserable. At this time, they didn't even have 10% of their true essence left in their bodies. However, the two of them still didn't stop, and they rushed together again. Bang! 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 Fists and feet kept colliding, and from time to time, they landed on each other's bodies, making muffled sounds. Stop fighting, you guys! Baichio shouted. Unfortunately, it was still useless. The two of them kept punching. Then, the last trace of true essence in their bodies was wiped out, and they wrestled together. Bastard! Bai Ziki cursed. Because he was very cultured, he really couldn't find any words to scold. In the end, he only said 3 words. I'll beat you into a pig's head! Lin Tian gritted his teeth. The two of them wrestled on the ground. Lin Tian rode on Bai Ziqi's body, and his fists were not polite at all. Bai Ziqi kicked Lin Tian's chest, turned over, and directly pounced on Lin Tian, and punched him in the face. Around them, the crowd of onlookers was originally very surprised, but gradually, they all widened their eyes. That Lin Tian rode on Thunder God Physique again. Wait! What is Thunder God Physique doing? Grabbing Lin Tian's head. Lin Tian, he, grabbed Thunder God Physique's nose. Thunder God Physique rode on Lin Tian's body. That Lin Tian kicked Thunder God Physique's crotch. Everyone was dumbfounded. How did the confrontation between two supreme stage powerhouses of the same generation end up like this? Why did it look like a street gangster fighting? Lin Tian! Bai Ziqi roared. Lin Tian actually kicked his crotch. It's useless to shout, I'll beat you up. Beat you until even your sister can't recognize you. Lin Tian responded. Bastard! Bai Ziqi roared. With one hand grabbing Lin Tian's head, he waved his fist towards Lin Tian's nose. This punch landed solidly, causing Lin Tian's nose to bleed from the pain. Damn it! Lin Tian cursed and punched Bai Ziqi's chin. The two of them twisted into a ball and rolled on the ground. With a sound of dust, their faces were covered in dust and of course, there was also blood. Chapter 392. In the distance, Bai Qiu's face suddenly darkened when she saw the two of them fighting. Why aren't you guys stopping? Can you stop fighting? She walked over and said. Lin Tian wouldn't listen, and Bai Ziqi wouldn't stop either. They grabbed each other's heads and pulled with all their might. The crowd looked at each other. Some people's mouths twitched. One was the holy son of the Bai family with the Thunder God constitution, and the other had recently become famous in the second heaven. He had killed 4 immortal ascension powerhouses, but now, they were pulling each other's heads like hooligans. Don't you guys find it embarrassing? Bai Qiu said angrily. The two of them didn't respond. They were strangling each other with their legs clamped together. Their faces were covered in dust. Bai Qiu looked at Bai Ziqi and begged. Brother, can you let go first? I'm your brother! 3 black lines appeared on Bai Ziqi's forehead at the sight of his younger sister siding with outsiders. Then, he naturally blamed it on Lin Tian. For a time, Bai Ziqi was even more ruthless. He desperately pulled Lin Tian's head, causing Lin Tianyi to grit his teeth in pain. Lin Tian cursed in his heart. He directly hit Bai Ziqi's head with his head and pulled Bai Ziqi's head harder. Bai Qiu tilted her head and looked at Lin Tian expectantly. Wait until I beat him into a pig's head. Lin Tian refused to let go. Bai Ziqi's eyes were burning. He gritted his teeth and said, Bastard! Stupid pig! Lin Tian replied. Either of them gave in. Even if their true essence was exhausted, their strength was still not small. Bai Qiu stood beside the two of them and tried to persuade them, but it was useless. In the end, she was also angry. A ball of treasure light rushed out from her body. As soon as it appeared, it emitted waves of divine light. It was a 2-inch tall treasure gourd. Its surface was engraved with mysterious patterns, floating up and down in front of Bai Qiu's chest. Is that an immortal weapon? A weapon imprinted with Tao patterns. This can only be unleashed by a connecting immortal expert. Judging from its power, it should be a high-grade immortal artifact. The crowd cried out in alarm. SS. Lin Tian, who was the closest to the gourd, felt his heart tremble. The aura of this gourd was even more powerful than that of an ordinary immortal reaching realm expert. Bai Qiu activated his immortal item, the gourd. His face was dark as he glared viciously at Lin Tian and Bai Ziqi. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't let go in 3 breaths of time, I'll suppress both of you, for a year. Lin Tian and Bai Ziqi. I'm your brother! How dare you suppress your own brother? Bai Ziqi had an ugly expression on his face. Let's talk things over. Don't do anything rash. Lin Tian spoke up as well. He was really afraid that Bai Ziki would suppress him with his immortal artifact. This girl kept saying that she wanted to suppress all the old antiques in the family when he was strong enough. She even wanted to capture a reincarnated body to chop wood and fetch water. It was indeed dangerous. If she said that she wanted to suppress him and Bai Ziki, she might really do it. If that happened, he would have nowhere to cry. 3. Bai Qiu stared at Lin Tian, the immortal artifact floating in front of her chest. Lin Tian's face darkened as well. He stared at Bai Ziki and said, "Pig, let go first, and I'll let you go." "Impossible!" Bai Ziki stared at Lin Tian. 2. Bai Qiu's voice rang out again. The immortal artifact gourd emitted an even stronger wave of energy. "Bai Pig, let go! You let go!" Either of them gave in. An even stronger wave of energy spread out. The gourd in front of Bai Qiu's chest glowed. 1. Bai Qiu gritted her teeth. The stopper of the gourd began to turn, and she was about to open it. Lin Tian and Bai Ziki's expressions changed. In the end, the two of them quickly discussed and both took a step back and let go of their hands at the same time. Lin Tian knew Bai Qiu better, and Bai Ziki knew that his sister was in a rebellious period. She might really suppress her brother. "That's more like it." Bai Qiu nodded. Bai Ziki and Lin Tian stood at the side and stared at each other. Neither of them found the other an eyesore. Bai Ziki tilted his head and stared at his sister. "Where did you get this immortal artifact from?" "When I left, I took one from home," Bai Qiu said. Bai Qiu said. Bai Ziki's eyebrows twitched. "She took one from home?" At this moment, two powerful auras approached from afar. In an instant, two young men appeared in front of everyone. Both of them were around 24 years old. They had outstanding features and had powerful auras. Tai Abstruse Saint Child, Yi Qiqing, and Wan Tong Saint Child Kong Yuzhou. The crowd was surprised. Yi Qiqing carried a treasure sword on his back. His eyes were cold and emitted an extremely sharp aura. Kong Yuzhou was bathed in treasure light. He looked calm, but he gave people a very oppressive feeling. These two are not king physiques, but their aptitude is rare. It is said that they have both reached the 5th celestial layer. Not long ago, the desolate demon physique fought with these two, and there was no clear winner. Someone whispered. In the second heaven, there were two holy lands, namely the Taishuan Holy Land and the Wantong Holy Land. They inherited the Taishuan Great Sword and Wantong Treasure Technique, which were comparable to the powerful ancient scriptures of the ancient aristocratic families. These two had almost mastered the divine techniques of their respective holy lands. They could basically control them. The only difference was their cultivation. "We heard that Brother Bai is fighting with Lin Tianyi. We came to help." Kong Yuzhou nodded and smiled at Bai Ziki. Bai Ziki did not say anything and did not respond. His face was very ugly as he coldly stared at Lin Tian. "Brother Bai, you seem to be heavily injured." Kong Yuzhou narrowed his eyes. A cold snort came from the side. Yi Qiqing stepped forward and closed in on Lin Tian like a killing sword. "Since you're injured, then leave. I'll clean him up." An extremely terrifying aura appeared. The sword intent was powerful and terrifying. The crowd trembled, shocked by this sword intent. What a terrifying sword momentum! It is said that Yi Qiqing has mastered the Taishuan Great Sword. It seems that it is true, someone said. Yi Qiqing stepped down and landed on the ground. Every step he took caused the ground to tremble and cracks to appear on it. Facing this aura, Lin Tian's heart sank. His true qi was exhausted, so it was impossible for him to block this kind of person. Buzz! At this moment, a treasure gourd suddenly appeared in front of him and knocked Yi Qiqing back. Immortal artifact? Yi Qiqing could not stabilize his steps. Two rays of light shot out from his eyes. Kong Yuzhou landed next to Yi Qiqing and looked at Bai Qiu. Princess Bai, what is the meaning of this? He is my man! Bai Qiu blocked in front of him. What? That Lin Tian is her man? There was a rumor that Lin Tian and Princess Bai were close. Is there something going on? But didn't Lin Tian just fight to the death with Bai Ziki? Brother-in-law and brother-in-law don't like each other, so they fought? T. Lin Tian killed so many people of the Bai family. The crowd stared at him with strange expressions. Lin Tian raised his eyebrows. Bai Ziki's face darkened. He looked at his sister and shouted, "What are you talking about? That's not what I meant." They misunderstood. "It's none of my business," Bai Chio muttered. Bai Ziki raised his eyebrows and looked like he was going to explode. He coldly glanced at those who had spoken before. The crowd was shocked. Many people quickly lowered their heads, not daring to look at Bai Ziki. Although Bai Ziki's true essence was exhausted, he was still the saint of the Bai family, and had the Thunder God King physique. Who would dare to provoke him at this time? Kong Yujo narrowed his eyes. "Brother Bai, what is your sister doing now?" "She and you. She has nothing to do with us," Bai Ziki said coldly. Kong Yujo nodded. "That's enough." Yi Qiqing nodded and stepped forward again, closing in on Lin Tian. Hum! The gourd vibrated, and a circle of immortal light spread out, sending Yi Qiqing flying again. "Don't you understand? He is my man. Don't touch him." Bai Chio glared at the two of them. Bai Ziki's face darkened again. He wanted to grab Bai Chio. Although Lin Tian was a little embarrassed, he was very grateful. After all, this girl was protecting him now. Kong Yujo squinted his eyes and said with a smile, "Princess of the Bai family, if I'm not mistaken, this man seems to be a great enemy of the Bai family. He destroyed several strongholds of the Bai family, and killed many of your clansmen, including the 7 heroes of the Bai family, and the 2 seniors in the celestial reaching realm. Don't you feel ashamed to protect him?" Lin Tian raised his eyebrows and stared at Kong Yujo coldly. Bai Ziki's face turned cold. Kong Yujo's words had undoubtedly stabbed his sister's sore spot. Boom! A terrifying aura rushed out. The gourd suddenly shook violently. Immortal light intertwined and knocked Kong Yujo back with a bang. Bai Chio's face darkened. "Leave!" Yi Qiqing's eyes were cold. He looked at Bai Ziki. "You and your sister are you," bang! Immortal power spread out and swept out, pushing Yi Qiqing back dozens of feet. Kong Yujo steadied himself, and so did Yi Qiqing. They both stared at Bai Chio. The two of them were very strong, but Bai Chio was in control of an immortal weapon of a sect. Moreover, it was a high-grade immortal weapon. The power of such a weapon was many times stronger than that of an ordinary immortal reaching realm expert. No matter how strong they were, it was difficult for them to withstand it. "Princess Bai, are you really going to protect him?" The smile on Kong Yujo's face disappeared completely. He emitted a powerful aura and became cold. Bai Chio took a step forward, and the gourd moved with her. "I'll give you 3 breaths of time to disappear from my sight. Otherwise, I'll suppress you for a year." The onlookers looked at each other. Why did these words sound so familiar? Suppress us for a year? Do you think you're invincible just because you have an immortal artifact? Yi Qiqing said coldly. Bai Chio said, 3. With a buzz, the immortal artifact gourd shook, and its aura grew stronger. When this fluctuation appeared, everyone was startled. Even Lin Tian was no exception. This aura was too powerful. Kong Yujo's face darkened. Princess Bai, your immortal artifact is indeed powerful, but you're too domineering. Bai Chio stared at the two of them and said again, 0. Boom! In an instant, the gourd's immortal light shot into the sky, sweeping up terrifying hurricanes. Many people were frightened. This aura was 5 or 6 times stronger than that of the Thunder God Constitution and Lin Tian. Wait, shouldn't it be 2 after 3? Why is it 0? Someone muttered. Lin Tian and Bai Ziki were speechless. Bai Chio moved at this moment. She waved her hand, and the immortal artifact gourd floated toward Kong Yujo. If I don't suppress you today, I'll change my surname. Chapter 393. Bai Chio was really unhappy during this period of time. On one hand, she blamed herself for bringing trouble to Lin Tian. On the other hand, she was sad for Lin Tian's Sha and the other Bai family members. Before that, Lin Tian and Bai Ziki fought together, which made her feel even worse. Although Lin Tiansha's people all had the surname Bai, they were not direct blood relatives. However, Bai Ziki was different. Bai Ziki was her brother. She couldn't stop the life and death battle between the two people who were the most important to her apart from her parents. Although she later separated the two with the help of an immortal artifact, there was still a fire in her heart. Now that Kong Yuzhou and Yi Qiqing came to attack Lin Tian and provoked her verbally, it undoubtedly ignited the fire. She might not really suppress Lin Tian and her brother, but she would definitely suppress the people in front of her. Boom! The immortal artifact gourd shone brightly, like the condensation of Ruoxian light. With a casual move, divine light filled the sky. With a cracking sound, the space directly collapsed. Large cracks in the void spread out in all directions like a spider web. Ma! Someone trembled. A high-grade immortal artifact was called a top-grade immortal artifact. This was the power of a top-grade immortal artifact. Kong Yuzhou retreated. Even though he was the saint son of all paths, a supreme figure of the same generation who had fought against the desolate demon king Physique, he couldn't help but be moved when facing a top-grade immortal artifact. It was really too tyrannical. With such a top-grade immortal power, it wouldn't be too difficult to kill an ordinary transcending immortal powerhouse. Kong Yuzhou's eyes became cold. He raised his hands at the same time and made a series of seals, casting out a divine ability secret technique that could make a powerhouse at the peak of the Zephyr realm tremble. Endless spiritual energy gathered in front of him, and divine power surged. 10,000 deaths draw the moon! Kong Yuzhou said in a serious voice. This was a powerful secret technique of all paths sacred grounds, all paths treasured technique. It was very powerful, and when cultivated to the extreme, it could even guide the power of the stars and moon to condense into killing light. It was very terrifying. Even if you draw the sun, it won't work. Bai Qiu gritted his teeth. The immortal artifact gourd flashed with immortal light, directly evaporating Kong Yuzhou's divine ability. 10,000 shatters! Kong Yuzhou shouted loudly. Two resplendent streaks of light shot out from his eyes, as if two light dragons were rushing out. They shook the entire space, and many places immediately distorted. Countless symbols pulsed about, causing many people to be horrified. So strong! As expected of the Holy Land's Holy Son. Although he doesn't possess a king body, his aptitude and battle prowess are 1 in a million. This level of mystique, coupled with his cultivation base, is enough to threaten an immortal connecting realm expert. Many people felt their hearts palpitate. Do you want to read a book? Cans H/U/. In the distance, even Lin Tian was moved. This Kong Yuzhou was indeed terrifying. He really wasn't any weaker than the desolate demon body. However, when he looked at Bai Qiu, he was not worried. He knew that Bai Qiu had the Taiyin body and had reached the airborne realm. Now that he had the help of a high-grade immortal artifact, he could even kill an ordinary immortal reaching realm expert. Kong Yuzhou could not threaten Bai Qiu. Boom! The light of the mystique pressed toward Bai Qiu. Just like its name, it seemed to be able to shatter everything. Bai Qiu flicked his finger elegantly, causing the immortal artifact gourd to tremble slightly. Boom! It was as though a divine drum had been struck. With the gourd as the starting point, a purple-colored ripple spread out, visible to the naked eye. Everywhere it went, the void remained stable. However, the power of the divine ability that Kong Yuzhou had unleashed was instantly shattered. This, Kong Yuzhou's powerful mystique disappeared in an instant? Isn't that too terrifying? Everyone was dumbfounded. Let me do it! Yi Qiqing shouted. With a clang, the big sword on his back was unsheathed. It flashed across the sky, shining with endless light. The Taishian Great Sword was the heritage treasure of the Taishian Holy Land. It was famous in the second heaven for its tyrannical offensive power. Yi Qiqing used the sword-controlling mystique recorded in the Taishian Great Sword, causing the space around to tremble. Many people felt a chill down their spines. The big sword flew across the sky and pressed toward Baichio. Baichio snorted. The immortal artifact gourd shook, directly shattering all the sword momentum and pushing Ichiching's big sword away. The power of the immortal artifact was unstoppable. Princess Bai, do you really want to fight with us? Aren't you afraid of hurting the harmony between the Bai family and the two holy lands? Kong Yujo said in a deep voice. Baichio stared at Kong Yujo, gritted his teeth, and said, I'll suppress you. Squeak! With a soft sound, the immortal artifact gourd trembled, and the stopper of the treasure gourd was pulled out by Baichio's will. Suddenly, an even more terrifying power rushed out. The immortal gourd shook violently as if a volcano had erupted. Oh my God! This, retreat! Retreat! Many people shouted. The immortal artifact gourd became several times more powerful at this moment. Streaks of immortal light flashed, causing many people to retreat in fear. Such immortal light was too terrifying. Any trace of it could crush an ordinary Zephyr powerhouse. Lin Tian was surprised. The unplugged immortal gourd was so terrifying. It was as if some kind of seal had been unlocked. Boom! The void shook as Baichio activated the immortal artifact, aiming the mouth of the gourd directly at Kong Yujo. Kong Yujo's expression finally changed completely. At this moment, an incomparably terrifying gravitational force pulled him into the immortal gourd. Open! Kong Yujo roared. His body flickered as he struggled to break free from the gravitational force and quickly retreated. Standing in the distance, Kong Yujo's face sank. He stood together with Ichiching and looked at Baichio. Princess Bai, my Wantong Holy Land will report this matter to your Bai family's patriarch later. You'd better behave yourself. With that, he nodded to Ichiching and turned to leave. A high-grade immortal artifact was too powerful. He knew that the two of them could not take Lin Tian away. A cold snort sounded, and the immortal artifact shone, blocking in front of the two. Did I say you can leave? Baichio stepped forward in the void. Ichiching's eyes shot out two cold lights, and the big sword on his back hummed. Kong Yujo said, Princess Bai, you won by relying on the immortal artifact. What do you want now? I'll suppress you for a year. I'll do as I say. Baichio was very domineering. The immortal artifact gourd flickered with immortal light. Its mouth was bottomless, like a black hole. Kong Yujo's face completely darkened. Don't go too far. You provoked me first. Baichio was unmoved. The immortal artifact gourd shook, and the immortal aura grew stronger. Staring at the two, she stepped forward step by step, making it clear that she was not going to give up and wanted to suppress them. Baichio, let them go, Baiziki said. Compared to his sister, Baiziki was undoubtedly more rational and calm. Kong Yujo and Ichiching were the saints of the Taixien and Wantong Holy Lands. In a sense, they represented the face of the Taixien and Wantong Holy Lands. If Baichio really suppressed the two of them here, it would be equivalent to damaging the reputation of the two Holy Lands and would cause a lot of trouble. No way! Baichio disagreed. The immortal artifact gourd's brilliance grew stronger as she approached Kong Yujo and Ichiching step by step. As soon as this power was released, it almost froze the surrounding space. Baiziki's face darkened slightly, and he frowned. I told you to stop and let them go. Cut the crap. If you plead for mercy for them again, I'll suppress you too. Baichio gritted her teeth. In the distance, everyone. This, so domineering. Ahem, yeah? Many of the onlookers had strange expressions. They wanted to laugh, but they suppressed it. Baiziki's face couldn't be darker, and the veins on his forehead throbbed. What kind of sister was this? She kept saying that she wanted to suppress her brother. She was really going to turn the world upside down. Good. Little Chio, you're bold. When my true essence recovers, we'll work together to suppress him. Lin Tian laughed. You too. If you talk nonsense again, I'll suppress you too, Baichio said. Lin Tian. In the distance, someone couldn't help but laugh out loud, but he quickly suppressed it. Boom! Blazing immortal light rushed into the sky, and the gourd suddenly enlarged several times. The mouth of the gourd was like a black hole, sucking in everything. An even more terrifying force surged out, as if a pair of invisible hands were grabbing at Kong Yujo and Yi Qiqing. Retreat, Kong Yujo said in a low voice. Yi Qiqing glanced at Baiqiu coldly and quickly retreated. He knew very well that immortal artifacts were invincible. Don't even think about escaping, Baiqiu said. Baiqiu was really angry. With her back to the crowd, her true essence surged, and a wisp of tiny origin quietly entered the gourd. Instantly, the power of the immortal artifact gourd increased several times. Kong Yujo and Yi Qiqing's path forward was directly cut off. The immortal artifact gourd descended from the sky, sealing off all directions. This, my god, it's like an expert at the peak of the immortal realm is here. This girl is really dangerous. Many people felt a chill down their spines. Kong Yujo roared and used a powerful secret technique of the all-access treasured techniques to support an immortal rainbow above his head. Gourd, suppress him, Baiqiu said. She used a wisp of tiny origin to activate a top-grade immortal artifact, and its power was terrifying to the extreme. The mouth of the gourd shone brightly as if the hand of an expert at the peak of the immortal realm was pressing down, shattering Kong Yujo's divine power on the spot. Then, the gourd trembled, and a ball of light instantly fell, directly enveloping Kong Yujo. Kong Yujo's expression changed. Princess Bai, stop! Baiqiu snorted. How could she stop? With a thought, the immortal artifact gourd shook and dragged Kong Yujo in. This is really suppressed? That's the saint of all access sacred ground. How ruthless! Many people gasped. Bai Ziqi's expression was a little ugly. His sister was too rebellious. Lin Tian wanted to laugh, but he held back. Boom! Another wave of immortal pressure rushed out. In the void, Baiqiu tilted her head and stared at Yi Qiqing. Without saying anything, the immortal artifact gourd shook and pressed down on the other party. Yi Qiqing naturally wouldn't sit still and wait for death. The big sword behind him rushed out again, emitting an even more terrifying divine power. Taishian Heavenly Sword, Yi Qiqing roared. This was one of the core divine powers of the Taishian Heavenly Sword, and its attack power was extremely strong. It's useless to use this divine sword, Baiqiu said. The gourd pressed down, and with a crack, it directly shattered Yi Qiqing's big sword into pieces. Then, the immortal artifact gourd emitted an even more powerful immortal pressure. A vortex appeared and instantly drowned Yi Qiqing, and he was sucked into the gourd like Kong Yujo. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.